Welcome to Pick Me Up, I'm Scared, the podcast.
I'm your host, Madeline.
And I'm your co-host, Kenna.
All right, Kenna. Today we are starting off our episode with a question I have for you, like always. Are you ready?
Maybe.
It's an easy one. I promise it's an easy one. What was your first social media account?
It was Friendster.
Oh, yes. A popular one.
Yeah, it was Friendster. I remember Courtney Love was on there for some reason.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa, that's weird.
Yeah.
So, like, how old were you? You must have been, like, 14, 15?
No, dude, I was older.
Oh, not when it first started.
I was like 17.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
I first got a MySpace account when I was 17. And then I think, well, maybe Friendster when I was 16, but I didn't really use it.
Yeah.
Like, I remember MySpace, though, when it happened, like, everybody I knew was spending hours a day on it. Like, it was so addicting at first. Like, I could not believe it.
Really? Did you spend a lot of time on MySpace?
Oh, fuck yeah. Like, in the beginning.
Did you have a lot of MySpace friends?
I don't think I did.
Do you remember who was in your top 8?
Oh, I forgot about that. No, I don't remember at all. I did all the HTML, too, to make it, like, look all cool.
Yes.
But I remember MySpace is honestly how I met up with my crush when I was on tour, and then that's how I met I met like the first dude outside of my town that I like kind of dated on MySpace, but then I met my first long-term boyfriend who I was with for like 7 years on MySpace.
Okay, yes. I feel like in the early days of social media, it was less about becoming like really popular on social media, and it was more about like meeting people that you would meet in real life.
Yeah, I had one friend who I looked on her MySpace page, and she had like a ton of follow, and I was like, what? She's like, yeah, I'm kind of like, you know, well, she is British, and she's like, oh yeah, in Britain, like, I have a lot of friends, and people know what I do, and I was just like, oh, so you're fancy.
So, okay, well, my first social media account, which I've talked about before, was this thing called Makeout Club. Do you remember I've talked about
Yes,
this?
I remember that. I was not on that.
Okay, so I was in summer school between 8th and 9th grade, and my best friend Tasha showed me this website, and I remember just thinking it was, like, very cool, but I was, like, resistant to it. I was like, it's cool, but, like, it's weird. What is this? And the way it worked is you didn't have your own page, like, on MySpace or anything like that. You'd go on the website, and you could filter by things like gender or age or location, or you could just choose to see everyone. And it would show you these pages that had like lists of people on them. So maybe 20 or so people were listed per page. And then when you signed up for the website, they just added you to the bottom of whatever the last page was of people. So it was in chronological order by the date that you joined. So the first page was always the people who'd been there the longest. And I had, you know, what was considered an early page number. So I remember that was very cool because I was resistant at first, but I still was a pretty early adopter to it because Tasha was an early adopter. She was into it. But yeah, like your profile would basically be one of like 20 on a page. And you got this little box on the page where you could put a really small single picture. That's it. Maybe 50 pixels, really little. That's all you could have. And then you had your username, a brief space to write whatever you want, like maybe 500 characters maximum, and then your AOL Instant Messenger screen name or your like ICQ. Do you remember what that was?
No.
I barely remember. I don't even know if those are the right letters. It was something else. It was like an instant messaging service.
I think it's sad. I didn't use AIM when I was younger.
That is sad.
Well, because the only people I would, like, I hated everyone in my small town, so I'm just like, who the fuck am I gonna, like, aim with?
Well, that's why you get a Makeout Club profile and you put your AIM name up there and then people instant message you.
I did not know this. I was in a small ass town.
You needed a Tasha, basically. I had a Tasha. So basically anybody who thought you looked cool on Makeout Club would IM you, instant message. That's what that was. That's what we called it. And people would do this all the time. And you would just talk to people from all over the world. So, like, my AOL Instant Messenger, which was literally just like a DMing service, like, maybe it's like the precursor to WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Or, like, Snapchat with no videos. But my AIM, AOL Instant Messenger, had a whole section that was just people from Makeout Club. You could, like, filter your contacts, and it was, like, Makeout Club list, and it was tons of people. And this website, it, like, beta launched in August of 1999, and we would have been on it literally a year later, so August of the year 2000. And this is the point that the public version was only 2 months old. Originally, it was invite-only beta testing. So Tasha probably showed me this website, like, the first week it went live. Whoa. And then I was like, no, I'm not going to get a profile. But 2 months later, I think I was on it.
Wow.
Yeah. And we had, those early page numbers, so we were considered pretty cool. And I ended up, like, meeting a lot of people from Makeout Club in real life.
Wow.
Yeah, like you were talking about with MySpace. Like, in the early days of social media, you just meet people and go hang out with them.
Yeah, the thing was, it's like, I feel like you met people, like, for me, like, both of the dudes who I met were in bands, and I knew that from, because MySpace was big for, like, your, like, shows are coming up. Like, that's all I used it for, was, like, knowing what shows were coming up. So when they were in town, then I was like, oh my gosh, we'll meet up.
Yes.
We met on MySpace.
Exactly. So, like, before MySpace, these social media websites like Makeout Club would have a message board. And on the message board, you could talk about specific things, like shows coming up or whatever. And everyone on the site was pretty much what we'd now maybe call a hipster, but back then we would have called them like an indie kid or a hardcore kid or an emo kid or something like that.
I called them hipsters.
Oh, we didn't use that term. I didn't see that term until the hipster handbook came out when I was in college.
We called people hipsters since I was in high school.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't like. Yeah, it's really weird. Like, maybe it's just like a very like
regional
thing. I feel like we all see, like, when I was younger, we used to say "right on" a lot.
Oh no, we didn't say that at all.
Or like maybe we still, like, there were like brief things that would come in and out. Like, I think maybe groovy for a while, which was weird for being like the 2000. Like, I'm just remembering all these things now. Like, all the things I was just like, but yeah, we called there was like hipsters. There was like hipsters, metalheads.
We didn't have metalheads.
Metalheads, crusties, jocks and cowboys.
Yeah, we didn't have cowboys, and we didn't have crusties, and we didn't have metalheads.
I feel like we didn't have a name for the new metal people because we were ashamed.
That sounds historically accurate, yeah.
We were just like, oh. Even though secretly I liked Limp Bizkit.
I liked it all. But yeah, so these like early social media sites that I was on, like Makeout Club, they were 100% geared towards online and IRL subculture scenes based on music or like dressing weird and like wearing thrift store clothes and whatever. So most people would use their little text box profile on Makeout Club to just list their favorite bands. And you would always try to list the most obscure bands you could think of. This is like what you want to do. You just like make a list of like 20 bands, like with nothing else, Other people had profiles like where they actually wrote things, but the cool thing to do, was the list of random obscure bands.
Oh yeah, I would always list the random bands in my MySpace profile that I was into.
Yeah, so like this website Makeout Club, it itself was actually based off kind of a random band, not super random, I guess, but it was named after a song called Makeout Club by that band Unrest.
Never heard of them.
Okay, so they were an indie band from DC that was on the Teen Beat label. And fun fact, the Teen Beat comps were some of my favorite places to find new music. So like in particular, the Teen Beat 50 from the year 1993, still to this day has some of my favorite songs on it. And it has an Unrest song on there. And for anyone not familiar with a comp because of age, before music streaming was a thing, the way you heard new music is that record labels would put out compilation CDs or records, shortened to comp, and these would have a bunch of that label's bands on them. Usually just like one track from each band, and you would buy these comps, and if you found a band you liked on the comp, you would go try to buy their CD or cassette or record or whatever.
Yeah, similar, you might remember from now that's what I call music.
It would be like before that, yes, like a cool version of that without a commercial.
I remember my first, maybe not my first comp, but one of my first comps was the Cleopatra Records comp from Hot Topic, and I still think about that compilation all the time.
Getting comps was like special. They were like fun, and you were like, oh, and they were usually really cheap.
Because it was not what I was expecting. It were all like vampire songs.
Yes.
Like, I got really into it. But at the time, I didn't understand different genres of music, so I'd get a comp from like, I think like K Records or like something like that, which was like total opposite. I'm like, this is what you do.
Yeah.
You get all the compilations, and then that's how you learn. You have to learn all the bands. It was like, it was hard.
It was hard. I also think that's why maybe older generations and subculture, we were a lot more fluid about our interests, because younger people now, they can go on Pinterest and they can find an aesthetic and they can do a deep dive on it on Spotify and learn all the correlating sounds, and you can really dive into one thing. But when we were growing up, we had no resources, and the older people in our scene wouldn't tell us shit. You just had to figure it out.
You had to have a cool old head.
Yeah, but I didn't have one, so I would literally have to stare at people's t-shirts in public, and if I thought someone looked cool, I would try to memorize the band on their t-shirt, then go to the record store on the weekend and try to look for the CD and just buy it without having ever heard it.
Before I found my old heads.
Yes.
The older, people who introduce you to, like, the cooler music. I literally would there was a buy-sell trade tape record and CD store in my small hometown that would just give away all their old Spin magazines. I would take stacks and stacks of Spins and Rolling Stones, and I would comb through all of their bestlets, and just like I would go try to buy the ones that you were supposed to, like one by one, or like try to find them at thrift stores on cassette, and they were hit or miss.
Yeah, it was real hit or miss, and sometimes you'd buy a CD and you wouldn't like it, and you'd force yourself to like it because you spent like $20 on it.
That's what I did with Sonic Youth Goo. At first, I hated that album.
Interesting.
But now I think it's like, oh, this album's so good. But I just remember being like, what have I done? I think it was like, honestly, almost $30 because it was like imported.
Wow. I mean, that's a hot take, honestly, not liking Goo the first time you heard it.
Oh, I hated it.
I did it with Sugar Ray, so a little different. A little different. Yeah. So, after I was done on Makeout Club, from there, the next social media site that I signed up for, maybe in the year 2002, was the site called Mad Rad Hair. And this was originally a LiveJournal community, but eventually it became its own social media website. And I was really active on the message boards. And I would, meet up with strangers to go to shows out of town. I would literally just type my phone number in the message boards and be like, text me, I'm driving to LA for a show tonight. If you're on the way, I'll pick you up. And I would just pick up strangers who texted me from this message board. And I made a bunch of friends this way. And the coolest thing about Mad Rad Hair is that they would choose users to be the homepage of the website. And getting chosen was always a surprise, and it was a huge honor. You wouldn't know until you went to the website, and it had a splash page, which was just a page with a picture you clicked to enter. And somebody's picture would be there on the splash page with Mad Rad Hair written over it. And one time I was chosen, and I went to the website and I saw myself on the front page, and it was so cool. And you were like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I actually went on a Wayback Machine and found old message board threads that I was in from Mad Rad Hair from the year 2004.
Oh my God.
And it was so funny. That's how I knew that I posted my phone number and shit. I was like, what was I doing?
Oh my God.
So the message board threads are really funny. I'll have to post them on our Patreon for people to see what 2004 teenage Madeline was up to. She was 15, I guess, or 16 or something. 17. She was 17. And that'll be cool for our Patreon subscribers. And
oh my God.
I have my profile photo from the time and everything.
Oh my God.
And also in the message board thread, I said I wanted to hit some girl in the face with a shovel. So as we can see, I've always been a bit aggressive. That's been consistent. But I also figure she really must have had it coming. I don't remember her at all, but she must have done something to get on my bad side. Hmm? Also at this time, around 2002, I had a Zynga.
What's a Zynga?
Okay. So it was the underground hip version of LiveJournal, and it was really popular if you were in the hardcore or post-hardcore scene. So LiveJournal, you know what LiveJournal was, right?
Like a blogging site?
It was like a blogging site, yes. So Xanga was like that, but originally Xanga had started for people to just blog music and like book and maybe movie reviews. So all like the cool music kids were on Xanga. So in 2002, you know, I had a Xanga and I had my mad red hair. And I also had this thing called a lipstick party profile, which we abbreviated to LSP, which in the thread you can actually see someone's like, I posted this from LSP, but I'll post it here too. So there was like crossover. And LSP, Lipstick Party, was this ultra hip, hard to get into social media site for like really early internet scene kids and hardcore kids. And they actually had to approve you. Like you sent them 3 photos of yourself, and then these hip internet scenesters would judge if you were cool enough to even be on the platform. So you'd have to wait to get approved, and getting approved was like a really big deal. You know, you were like, oh, I'm cool. Very validating. And then from there, of course, MySpace came out in 2003. And we all joined that, like you said, Kenna, and I feel like the rest is history. And that really set the tone for social media, right?
Yeah.
MySpace was like the start of it. Like everything we were doing before was like weird and small and underground and indie. But then
MySpace was huge.
When MySpace hit, it was everywhere, it felt like. And now, of course, we have like countless different social media sites, and there's like 4.2 billion active social media users worldwide, which is over half of the total global population. And 90.1% of the total global population that has internet access.
Whoa.
So if you have internet access, even if you're a grandma, even no matter what your age, if you have internet access, there's a 90% chance you have a social media platform.
Wow.
Right? And internet users today, worldwide, spend an average of 2 hours and 25 minutes on social media every single day.
Wow.
So, you know, I was thinking about this, the glory days of the early internet, my own personal journey with the World Wide Web, and maybe also about like Elon Musk burning Twitter to pieces. Maybe just a little. And it led me to today's episode topic, which is social media.
Wow.
Yeah. So kind of obviously, as long as social media has been a thing, right, humans have been communicating through it. Like, do you remember the early days back when newspapers had like personal ads and classified ads?
Oh yeah, it's like, do you like pina coladas? You know, and then, you know, the personal ad.
Right, exactly, because the song is about 2 people who are bored of their relationship who put one of them puts a personal ad in a newspaper looking for someone who likes pina coladas.
And walking
Getting caught in the rain.
Getting caught in the rain.
If you're not into health
if
food.
you like making love at midnight.
Yes, if you have like half a brain.
And like the taste of champagne.
Oh, repulsive. I hate it. This is not for me. I don't like being wet. I don't like champagne. And by midnight, you know, I'm usually playing video games and watching horror movies. It's not a good time for me.
Basically, I like all of the song except for... I do like health food, and I generally am early to bed.
Oh, right. So, yeah, the premise of the song is that one of them puts this classified ad in the newspaper, and the other one, not knowing who it is, answers the ad, and then they talk, and they're both cheating on each other, but when they meet up in person for the first time, it's each other. And then they fall in love again. Yeah. So it's a pretty weird, fucked up song, honestly.
Weird fucking song.
Weird fucking song. But yeah. People were being social like this in newspapers and magazines, and that was a source of media. They were social in a source of media. But I don't think we traditionally think of like a good old-fashioned newspaper as being social media, right?
Yeah.
No. So like kind of what do you think of as social media? Like what makes it social media to you?
To me, social media is different than like a message board. In this, or like a blog, in the sense that there always seems to be like a more personal avatar, and you're like communicating with people in real time rather than like waiting for people to respond to a post.
Yeah, okay, I can see that. I feel like it's like social media is digital, right? It's digital communication, and that's like the real time is important for that. So I guess like those phone call lines, like those party lines in the 90s that you would all call into and talk to strangers, that could have been social media.
Yeah, well...
But it's content-based. Social media is content-based.
Yeah, I guess you could consider blogging sites like social media because people, like, interact. It's not... Okay, I guess the difference would be, like, you know, when we first started making websites, like, I remember when I was in middle school, high school, kids would make Angel Fire websites.
Oh, I remember. I had one where I would post film photos I took of my friends.
But they're not interactive. It's like, if someone wants to comment on your page, they have to somehow find your email if you have, like, a contact page.
Right, exactly.
Whereas, like, if you were even, like, a message board, you can, like, leave a message for someone, or, like, post a message and then someone can respond. It's, like... interacting between people. It's like a two-way communication instead of like a one-way communication.
Yes, and I think you're right. It is instant because that's what makes it different than like sending an email or like being in a newspaper ad.
And I feel like also the ability for it to just be outside of, you know, two people, like, in, you know, where it's just like you make a phone call to someone else or you send a message or an email to someone else.
This is like a public forum where you're generating content and other people can respond to it.
Yeah, and like it may or may not be private in some regards, but the point is for it to be shown to multiple other people, and then multiple people respond back.
Yes, I like that. So what do you think are like the most popular social media platforms today, if you had to guess?
If I had to guess, it'd probably be like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook.
Okay, that's what I thought in that order too. It actually is, number one is still Facebook. It still has...
That makes sense. Because, like, you know, like,
older
ants
people
and stuff.
Yes, exactly. It has 2.9 billion monthly active ants on it.
It's funny because it's like ants, and I'm like, I'm the age of an ant.
I'm the age of an ant, too.
I mean,
not to malign the ants of Facebook.
Yeah, I just mean, like, my ants.
Right. Our ants, yes. It is most popular with people aged 25 to 49, so we do fall in that demographic. The second most popular one is YouTube.
Oh, never thought about that one.
I don't think of it as social media either.
I don't
totally
think of it because to me it just seems like a TV channel. But I'm like, but people comment underneath like
the worst thing in the world is a YouTube comment section.
Sometimes though, gems. Oh my god! I know you're not supposed to, but I do like reading. Like especially when you find a really strange video and you just find a comment where it's like, was listening this to my car in 97 when Brenda broke up with me.
Oh, there's a lot of those on the music I watch. Yeah, it's all like our old heads. It's our old heads on YouTube now. Yeah.
I love when they're like, I was at this rave in 98, did a lot of ecstasy, you know, now I'm just a dad.
Right, exactly. No, I think it's funny because I never wanted to join YouTube because the comment section was so toxic, but then like jokes on me, I joined TikTok and it became the most toxic comment section on the internet.
Oh my god.
Yeah, okay, so the third one, this one's interesting to me because I don't really understand it, but it's WhatsApp. Is that considered social media?
To me, I'm just like, it just seems like texting.
That's what I always thought it was too. So that's interesting to me, but there are 2 billion monthly active users and it's most popular with people aged 18 to 44. And I have seen memes about people being like, this is what our grandmas are talking to each other about on WhatsApp. And there's like weird things people are so there must be some public element to it because somebody posted that like their grandma saw on WhatsApp that they should put an onion in the corner of every room of their house to like, for some reason.
What?
Yeah, so I feel like I'm just realizing from this I have no clue what happens on WhatsApp at all.
I have no clue what happens I use WhatsApp like basically as like texting between
someone who's not in the same country as you,
right?
Because
just texting between someone who's international.
But then now a lot of people have iMessage. So if somebody has an iPhone, you don't even need WhatsApp anymore.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, okay, so then the fourth one is Instagram, less than WhatsApp. It's still around 2 billion monthly active users, and Instagram is most popular. This one really surprised me. With people aged 18 to 29. I thought it'd be a little older. I thought it'd skew a little older.
Oh, I thought it would too.
Yes, and then number 5 is TikTok with 1 billion monthly active users, and that is most popular with people aged 16 to 34.
Makes sense.
Totally makes sense. And then coming in after that, filling in slots 6 through 10, we have Snapchat, overwhelmingly used by teenagers. We have Pinterest, overwhelmingly used by women. Reddit, overwhelmingly used by men. LinkedIn, overwhelmingly used by middle-aged people in the workforce, which makes sense. And then finally, Twitter, which is overwhelmingly used by zillennials, which is that small group between Generation Z and millennials.
Oh,
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I mean, I like going on Twitter. I don't post. I like basically lurk for like news articles, and there's like a couple people who are I'm like, haha.
Yeah.
Like, it's like for jokes and news.
I feel like Twitter's for news, definitely. That's what I think.
But when I read the comments on Twitter, though, wowie zowie.
You saw the thing, obviously, with the woman who just liked to drink coffee in her front yard with her husband.
And they're like, fuck you!
They're like, die, you stupid, ugly bitch. And everyone's like, what the fuck? Why are we mad at this woman for liking her husband?
And yeah, they're like, I wish I could drink my coffee in the morning, bitch.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, I'm just like, oh my, like,
Yeah, that was wild. I think there's like that, the way the internet reacts to things though, is that there's a double pendulum swing. Everyone comes in with an opinion. Everyone's like, in her case, fuck you. And then there's the reverse pendulum swing where now everybody's like, no, not fuck you. Why is everybody mad at her? And that's how the internet goes. And that's why when I first started to get popular on TikTok, I was like, oh no, everyone likes me too much. The backlash from everyone liking me too much is going to be at fuck her. Everyone hates her now. And then it happened. And then I survived it. But that's just how it goes. That's how the internet goes. General opinion, everyone on board, consensus sharing, and then it becomes cool to do the total opposite of that. So that woman obviously got destroyed on Twitter for being like, I like to drink coffee in the garden with my husband, but then all the backlash was like, vindicate her, let her experience joy. So now the going narrative is that coffee garden woman was great.
I'm just like, why can't we all be coffee garden people?
Yeah, we should all be coffee garden people. I like that take.
I also like how there was like a guy just posting like he was like, yeah, like I've somehow made my life into a pretty good life. I live in a small town. I got my expenses down. So like I go on vacation all the time. I like my job. I like my wife. And people were like, you should get fired.
Oh my God.
They're
really?
like, you're taking advantage. Like, I forget what it was. Like, it was basically like this guy lucked into a really good work-life situation. And people were like, how, like, being like a college professor, they're like, how do we get this dude fucking fired? Like, this should not be, you're taking advantage of the system. Like,
wow.
And I'm just like, we want people to just get, like, I don't understand why, like, we don't have a safety net in this country. Like, someone getting fired, like, that's a big...
They could die.
That's a big fucking deal.
Yeah, if you lose your source of income and then you lose your house, you're at this, like, really increased risk of, like, literally dying.
Well, people are like, you know, I get it because it's like, the system we have is really, really unfair. So, like, anybody's, like joy sometimes you're just like, well, fuck you.
Yeah, that's totally
when
true.
It's like, it makes it seem like this personal thing rather than just
right.
like, whoa. Like, I'm okay with people being happy as long as they're not hurting anyone else. Like,
Same. Wait, so Kenna, you have a degree in some media-related field, right?
I have a degree in digital media studies.
Oh, I remembered. I said journalism and digital media.
Oh, it actually is both.
Yes,
I have a degree in both. I forgot. It's a double major. But I feel like I'm not good at either of those because I'm like betraying my age. My digital media degree is so old that I know how to code ActionScript for Flash games.
Yeah, Flash is dead now.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying,
Flash,
like...
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting, though. So, like, do you have... As a professional in the industry.
I actually use my degree now.
Yeah, you do. Do you have any... like unique insights to how digital media has evolved or how it's different from older media sources that came before or anything like that are interesting? No pressure. Big question. You can say no.
Well, you know what's funny? This is like freshman year of college, my first like intro to digital media class. People were all, and this was like MySpace era. Like, honestly, Facebook didn't come out until like the year after, like, not joking. And they were talking about how people can become so mean over the internet because they don't interact with, like, people are more likely to say like fucked up shit to someone like over a screen than face to face.
Right.
Like,
I think they actually did a study though, and they proved that people who are assholes on the internet are actually just assholes in real life.
That's what actually that's what, but you know, at the time they were like, this is
right.
This
that was
is
the narrative.
Thing. But like, what to me, it's like, oh, how quaint when there was only MySpace,
right?
And like like when you did Twitter, you texted it from your phone.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Like, this is like when I was just like, wowie, okay, like, but I mean, like, also, you know, it's like people, even back, you know, this is like, you know, over 10 years ago at this point, like, where it was like talking about how, like, you know, how people can actually change what is becoming popular rather than like an editor at a news site being like, these are the stories we're focusing on. Like, people can respond and circulate to their own stories, which actually became like way more and more true, where it's just like, you know, now like a lot of news stories are driven by like clickbait, you know, they like journalists will write stories because like, oh, like for a while, like I feel like when I was in college, it was like Lindsay Lohan is really popular, gets the clicks, so there's a million news stories about Lindsay Lohan because people are clicking on it.
So it's like twofold. It's like democratizing the media you consume from two fronts. It's like, one, based on your online habits, those are the stories they're gonna post because they know you're gonna look at it. You're gonna look at it more. And then like two, now you are user generating content that other people can see. So it's like a double democratization of media.
For good or bad. For good, it's like, oh, well, you can like people have, or like, you know, you see people, respond. Like I feel like, especially after, Occupy, you saw like that was like things that I don't think would have come out of pre-social media.
That's true, yeah. It was the Occupy Wall Street movement, and that happened when I lived in San Francisco, so it must have been 2005 or 6? 2006 maybe?
I thought it was like 2009, because I lived in Portland.
It could have been later. Yeah, because I lived in San Francisco for 5 years, so somewhere in that window. But yeah, it was social media generated.
But like also talking about, well, you know, now like with journalism, it was just starting to come out, you know, where it's just like, well, this can be, you know, it could also be really bad because instead of covering like important stories like, you know, that affect people, you just start covering stories that you know will get clicks. So instead of covering like election fraud, you're covering Lindsay Lohan in court.
Yes. Also, this is just like an unrelated side note, but the other day I was at work and there was a man sitting in front of our front door, and a lot of people were going to be coming in and out, and I didn't want him to get hit by the door. So it was like 10 a.m. He was drinking a beer, smoking a cigarette, having a good time. So I walked up to him and I was like, hey, just, you know, I'm going to be going in and out of this door a lot, but that other door right there, like 5 feet away, we don't use that one at all. So do you want to sit in front of that to make sure you don't get hit with the door? And he was like, you look just like that actress. And I expected him to say Fairuza Balk because that's the actress I look like, you know? And I was like, oh, yeah, what actress? And he's like, you know the one who ended up working in the morgue? And I was like, no. What? No, I don't know the one who worked in the morgue. And he's like, yes, you do. You know her. She worked in the morgue, and then Dr. Phil came and tried to save her and get her career back on track. And she said, you can't help me, Dr. Phil. You don't know what it's like to be me. And then she said to Dr. Phil, you can lick my ass. And then I was like, oh, I have no idea who this person
is.
Who
the fuck is this person?
And he was like, it's Lindsay Lohan. And I was like, I don't think this is Lindsay Lohan. And he was like, no, it's 100% Lindsay Lohan, and you look just like her.
She became a mortician?
Yeah, and that's what he said. And I was just like, I don't think that's her. I think you must be thinking of someone else. And he's like, I'm pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure, though, she did go on Dr. Phil.
Maybe she did tell Dr. Phil to lick her ass.
That would be amazing. I'm like, I think that he's half right about this story.
He might. I was so confused by all of it, though, because I'm like, I don't look like Lindsay Lohan. I don't think she worked in a morgue. I could be wrong, though. She did start that European nightclub. Anything's possible. She's doing things.
She had her own reality show, which I watched part of, and it was like, she did this like hotel resort, and basically the reality show was a competition show kind of, where she hired all these like hot people to like work at her vacation resort.
I totally remember
and
this
she
now,
was like a really mean manager.
Oh, I didn't watch it. So maybe she did tell Dr. Phil to lick her ass. Anyway, I just, this man has been in my head because I'm just like, is there so much I don't know about Lindsay Lohan? But then every time I'm at a computer, I forget to look it up. So,
I don't want to know. In my mind,
it's true and he's right. Yes. So sorry for the random aside that has nothing to do with anything except for Lindsay Lohan, which somehow became the topic of our episode. But yeah, no, I think that like the main thing that started to happen with social media is that, yeah, it was hinging on the presence of digital technology. It utilized the internet. It relied on like user-generated content, but also it relied on like user click patterns. And it kind of facilitated, obviously, much more rapid communication than any other tool in history. And it sped up your conversations, and also, like, sped up conversations that would make you reconsider yourself and your place in the world and your place in relationship to other people. And also sped up how quickly we all had access to information like social issues or news, like Occupy, or like, oh, this, bomb went off in this place, or, there's this political movement, or, all of these things happening around you. You just kind of got like inundated with information. And I think what you were touching on, Kenna, is like for better or for worse. It was like a double-edged sword. You got the Lindsay Lohan clickbait, and then you also had people on Twitter being like, hey, I live in this city and this fucked up thing is happening right now and nobody knows about it. And there was also like the protests in Egypt, for example, that were all coordinated around Twitter communication.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, that was definitely like really the start of what was going on, because like I feel like the change between like 2001-ish to 2007, like basically like print newspapers became like obsolete.
I remember, and they were all closing down and journalists were freaking out, and it was like a panic in journalism because the internet did render a lot of print media obsolete. Yes, all at once, very quickly.
Yeah, and it was like, so everything, migrated online, and everyone was trying to figure out like, this was before the New York Times had like a paywall, so it's like everything was going up online, but then how do you monetize that? And like, I was like, I picked a really bad
time to get a journalism degree?
Well, I got it because I had to take a break from my digital media studies degree because I had tendinitis.
Oh. Yeah, I feel like, though, what you were saying earlier about, like, how social media, the thing about it that was really important is that it was, like, instant communication.
Yeah.
Because back when you did have newspapers, like, think about it. If you put ads in a classified section, you'd write an ad, and then the paper would go out, and then you'd wait a week to get a response, and then you'd write your response, and it's like, oh, you'd be lucky if you could get 2 back and forths for each person in a convo and a classified ad in a month.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you can do that as fast as you can type it. You can do that in 30 seconds if you type fast enough. And, like, that rapid of communication, I think, like, impacted the overall effect that just information as a genre suddenly had on everybody's life. Mm-hmm. It was a really big shift, though, when that was all happening. That, like, period you mentioned, the transition period where journalism in print form started to die and people were trying to acclimate to, like, the whim of the internet user to supply them with the steady, flow of information that they were looking for.
Yeah.
But, yeah, social media, as we think of it today, I feel like it's just much more social than other media forms because it facilitates so much socialization in such a short period. Like, you can just talk a lot more to a lot more people.
Also, I will say, before the majority of people got iPhones, like, the internet, I feel like it was, like, a lot of weirdos on the internet. Or, like, a lot of, like indie, underground, a lot of people who were booking, like, underground shows. So, like, that's, like, what I used it for mainly, is to, like, see who, like, what shows were playing, and, like, there was just, like, a lot more, like, just, like Tumblr aesthetic, like, that you would call it now, but at the time we were just, like, it was just, like, weird underground aesthetic. And then, until, Rihanna did C-Punk.
No, you're totally right. It's kind of true.
Betraying my age. Remember when Rihanna did C-Punk?
When Rihanna broke C-Punk. Right. So, like, I feel like to understand it, we should start at the history of social media. Start at the history of this here damn thing. And not, with print media. Because obviously social media, it necessitates the internet and, like, a digital technology and digital communication just for that speed element alone. So a lot of people say that maybe the first social media website that's really significant that we think about is this thing that launched back in 1997 called 6degrees.com, like 6 degrees of separation. Do you remember this?
Is it like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon?
It was before that, I think. But yes, it's this idea of 6 degrees of separation, that everybody is separated from each other with, within 6 people.
Huh.
So, like, if you and I didn't know each other, we would have 6 people between us to get to each other. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I definitely remember when this came out, but I was like a child, right? I was 10 or 11, and I did not understand it at all. So my dad had been a really early adopter on the internet, so we had AOL, America Online, and I grew up as a kid going to these AOL chat rooms all the time. So I did understand the concept of, like, talking to strangers on the internet, but the idea of having a social media website where you had a profile and people could just see you without talking to you, felt really different to me, because on chat rooms, it was kind of the opposite. You could talk to people, but you couldn't see them at all. You knew nothing about them. You didn't know what they looked like. You didn't know their name. You didn't know where they were from. You were completely anonymous, and you could just pretend to be a totally different person in every single chat room you entered, which I always did. I just catfished people and lied on the internet as a child all the time in these AOL chat rooms.
The first time me and my cousins ever went on the internet, like ever, we were just like lying our asses off, saying we were like, I'm a 32-year-old woman named Kathy, and we're like straight up like 6 years old.
Yes, exactly. There's actually this scene in Pen 15.
I was just thinking about that, where they choose their I can't stop laughing. They choose their AIM names.
Yes.
And it's Diaper 911.
That was really accurate, though. Like, when I watched that episode, I was like, oh my god, this is...
I was dying, and then, like, the guys, he chooses his, and it's Fly Miami Bro.
Yes, Fly Miami Bro. But, like, that was 100% what it was like going on the internet around that time, because that show also, they're the same age as us. Like, we were that age in that year.
Where it's like, you're catfishing each other.
Yes, everybody's just lying to each other.
Like, no one's who they say they are.
Right. So 6 Degrees was different, because it's like, no, it's not a chat room. You have a profile, and everyone knows who you are. And I was like, why would you want to do that? That's weird. But then by 1999, you know, the online diary systems started to pick up steam. So that's where we saw LiveJournal and Xanga and Blogger all launching that year. And this was just, you know, online journaling. It was this huge idea, especially for angsty teens working through their feelings in their bedrooms. So you could have private journal entries, but also public journal entries. And most people I know updated theirs every single day. And you could follow people and you can comment on people's entries. And soon there were groups and whole scenes emerged around these LiveJournal groups or these Xanga groups. And Xanga originally did, you know, start out just as a place to share like book and music reviews. So it was the more subculture-y one in my experience, although LiveJournal did have a big goth contingency. So if you were into like punk or hardcore, though, you'd be on Xanga. And eventually Xanga just became a more specialized niche version of LiveJournal. And those were kind of the first blogging platforms that came out, in 1999. And then the next year, by the year 2000, we started to see those more specialty social media sites pop up that were not in a blogging format. And that would include things like MakeOutClub.com, which came out that year that I mentioned earlier. And social media and the internet in general, like you were saying, Kenna, it was all just a lot more specialty at this time. So in the year 2000, there were only 361 million people on the internet in the entire world. That's the population of the United States today, roughly.
Wow, and aren't there like 6 or 7 billion people?
There's billions of people. A decade later, though, by 2010, that number had increased 500%.
Wow.
So the era you were talking about, you know, kind of 2003 to 2009-ish, that was a super rapid expansion in technology and in communication on the internet. That was wild. But back in those early days, it definitely felt like the only people who were on the internet were like nerds, techno-anarchist types like you saw in the movie Hackers, and then just subculture freaks trying to book shows and talk to each other.
Yeah.
That was it. That was the internet. It was like kind of the wild, wild west. And that's why I think the year 2000 was the perfect time to launch Makeout Club, right? Because it was a gathering place for subculture freaks on the World Wide Web. Also, in the year 2000, a social media site came out that was kind of like the opposite of Makeout Club, but it was hotornot.com. Do you remember this?
Oh, God.
Kenna, do you want to explain it?
I actually don't know, but I remember people going on there and I was just like, we're like talking about it and I was just like, this sounds bad. This sounds like the Vice do's and don'ts.
Okay, it was a little different because you put yourself on there. So here's how it would go. It's this website where you created an account and you uploaded a picture of yourself, but it didn't have your name, it didn't have your location, it didn't have your contact info, it had no identifying anything about you, just a picture of you. And then other users would vote on whether they thought you were hot or not. And it sounds really brutal. It was definitely brutal. But it was really appealing to people, I think, because in real life, very few people would give you just like a straight up honest answer about whether or not you were attractive. And I remember being a young person, like just being like, do I look good? Do people like the way I look or do they not? And it took me years to be like, I'll never know, so it doesn't matter. So I'm just going to let it go. But, you know, if you're in especially adolescence or like early post-adolescence and you're like, how do I fit into the fucking world? You could literally go somewhere and people will just tell you. people would just be like, not total fucking uggo, or people would be like, 10 out of 10, you're smoking, and that was really appealing to people. People really liked Hot or Not for this reason. Like, in real life, nobody would tell you this shit. So you could be like a bully magnet, for example, and people would tell you were ugly no matter how conventionally attractive you are. And I think about you and Camilla in this regard. Like, you and Camilla are very conventionally attractive people, but, like, you were bullied as kids. So people were like, no, you're hideous, which, like, is not true. But then also, if you could be unconventionally attractive, right? And you might feel ugly just because you don't match the mainstream beauty standard that you see all around you. But other people are like, yeah, you don't look like the mainstream beauty standard, but you're so attractive. Like, wow. And then you could, just be like a straight up uggo by most people's beauty standards. But people aren't going to tell you that's your face, probably. They're probably not. People on the street aren't going to walk by you and be like, wow, you're ugly as shit, you know? So you don't know. And in the end, attractiveness is all obviously relative and hyper-influenced by global power structures. We all know that. But sometimes you just want a stranger to look you in the eye and tell you how other people are perceiving you out in the world. And that is what Hot or Not delivered on in this really chaotic, bizarre way that people loved. People loved it. I knew so many people who were like, yeah, I'm posting myself on Hot or Not. I really want to know, you know? And
oh my God.
The website was so simple. You'd go to it. There'd be a picture of somebody who had posted themselves, right? You had to have an account to post it. It was a little bit of fact-checking for the early days of the internet. And then you would just rank how hot you thought the person was on a scale from 1 to 10. And then after you voted, there'd be this average score that was displayed, and then you could see what everybody else thought, and then that person could see too.
Oh my gosh, I would be so bad at this because, like, literally when I was younger, I just thought everyone was the same level of attractiveness unless they were a dick.
I mean, you were right, because attractiveness is fake. It's a social construct. It doesn't actually mean anything.
But actually, there were a couple boys who I was like, but like, that was, you know, but everyone else to me was like equally, like literally, I'm like, everyone is as equally as attractive as everyone else.
Yes. No.
So I would have failed at this website.
Well, you don't have to go on it ever, I promise. You don't have to upload your picture to Hot or Not and have millions of strangers vote on how hot they think you are.
I was like, you're gonna make me.
Kenna's going on hotornot.com.
Stop making me go on hotornot.com.
But yeah, you could like go on and you could choose the gender of person you wanted to see, what age range you wanted to see. But yeah, unlike other social media sites, again, there was no name, there was no contact info, there was, you know, nothing that could identify somebody, just a picture of some random person's face. And this, again, was so popular. People loved this so much that it spawned a lot of knockoff websites, too. So, like, I did not use hotornot.com because I was basically a child. I was 13. But I do remember when I did go on it because I was like, what is this? I will say everyone had pretty high scores. People were really nice. I think the lowest score I ever saw was like a 6.8, you know? So people were kind to each other. But yeah, the knockoff website that I went on more than this was gothornot.com.
Yeah. I feel like that sounds really familiar.
Yeah, so this is where, same thing, anonymous, you upload a picture of yourself, and then users would vote on whether they thought you looked goth or not.
Wow. At this point in time, when I felt like I was at my gothest, I definitely, like, had, like, blonde hair and, like, wanted to dress like a member of Three's Company, like Farrah Fawcett or something.
Yes. I mean, again, the late 90s and the early 2000s was an interesting time for subculture. It was all in the mix. Everything was in the mix.
Yeah. I mean, like, I feel like whenever I was into, like, the heaviest, darkest music, I always, I remember going to, like, a grindcore show and someone called me princess because I was wearing a tube top.
I love that.
But I was like, you know me! I live next door to the grindcore warehouse! I listen to all the metal! But they were like, I was like, you drive a Range Rover!
Ew! He was the grindcore princess. I assume it was a man.
No.
Oh! They, person of undisclosed gender was the grindcore princess. So Goth or Not is interesting to me, though, because I looked it up and I was like, oh, I bet I can find it on Wayback Machine, just like I found Makeout Club and Mad Red Hair. No, the internet has been scrubbed of the existence of gothornot.com, but I know it exists because one time we Mad Rad Hair kids, we got into a fight with the gothornot.com crowd. We got into a fight with them because we decided it'd be funny to troll them. And we took our pictures, and we photoshopped ourselves to look like really sad goths, and then we wrote things on them like, my mom makes me clean my room, I want to die, and then we uploaded them all at the same time to the Goth or Not website, so they were just flooded with the hardcore kids making fun of them, and we thought it was like a friendly troll, but they got really mad. And then they were like, it's you guys, it's the mad red hair people. And then we had like an internet feud between the goths and like the hardcore emo scene kids.
I feel like if you're goth, you can't take yourself that seriously.
Oh, they took themselves so seriously.
I mean, but the thing is like, but you are supposed to take yourself that seriously,
yes, you
which
have
is
to.
funnier.
I know, you have to. I like, remember this though, because I'm like, this is all in good fun. Like, this is a silly memory. But it also feels like a fever dream, but I know I did not invent it because my brain would not invent that level of a troll. Like, my brain doesn't go to troll. I'm too sincere for that most of the time. So it definitely happened, but I just don't understand why there's no internet record of gothornot.com, the best website that ever existed.
Oh,
yeah, scrubbed.
maybe one day we'll find.
Maybe one day it'll come back to us. Okay, so this kind of gets us to 2002. And this is the same year, that I'm getting into madradhair.com, but, the more normie crowd, the more mainstream crowd was getting into something else, which I do think was the average person's introduction to the idea of social media. And it is also, Kenna, it was your introduction to the idea of social media.
Friendster.
It was Friendster, yes. And did you know at first Friendster was launched to be a dating website?
Interesting.
Yeah, but that's not what people used it for at all. It literally had friend in the title. It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, it's like, hey, friend.
Yes.
It feels very platonic.
Okay, so can you describe what Friendster was like?
I mean, it was like kind of like to me, it actually was more like proto Facebook because like MySpace had like a lot of stuff going on. This seemed very bare bones, like kind of like, from what I remember, like white background.
You got your own page though. It wasn't like on Makeout Club or Mad Red Hair where you just had a box on a page with a bunch of other people. You had your own
You had your own page, yeah. And you could find other people, like, and then sometimes you could message them.
And you could add friends, right?
Yes, you could add friends. Yeah, I feel like this was just a proto MySpace.
Yeah, so you had your profile. You could post status updates, just like Facebook. You could post your mood of the day. And you could message people as long as they were friends of friends. And therefore in your kind of extended network.
Yes.
That's why you could only message some people.
I feel like I only had like 2 friends because it's like, again, from a small town.
And it wasn't like weirdo, like, the early days of the internet was weirdos. They were targeting kind of like just normal people. So that would make sense to me. You wouldn't know a lot of people on it.
You know how I got into Friendster? Because of Napster.
Oh, this makes sense.
Because, okay, my friend, her family computer was just 24/7 downloading shit from Napster.
Relatable.
And that's how we listened to like all the music. So they were on the computer all the time because they were always checking their Napster. And then they were like, yo, you got to get on, like, and then like that just got us in the habit of being around on the computer all the time. And she was the one who introduced me to Friendster.
That makes sense. And for anybody who doesn't know, Napster was not the first, but definitely the most famous illegal file sharing network that was predominantly targeted towards music. So you could go download music. It was peer-to-peer. So you, as a person using Napster, would make your library of files you had, because again, there weren't music streaming services. You would just download songs on your computer.
It was like the first torrent site.
Yeah, so they were MP3s, and then you would make it so that your MP3 library was available to everybody else on Napster that they could download from you, and you could download from them. And yeah, you would torrent, you would download these songs and keep them on your computer, and that's, that was really important to us. That was like, yeah.
And then afterwards, I used LimeWire.
I used LimeWire too, and BearShare.
Honestly, LimeWire is how I discovered my first really good long-term boyfriend.
Wait, you met on LimeWire?
No. I discovered his band on LimeWire.
Wow.
And
that's
then
less weird, I
Then
guess.
I had to, through MySpace, I found the show he was playing at, because I was like, I really like this band, and just so happens, we really hit it off, even though I was kind of, I was a fan. I was a groupie a little bit.
Oh, you were a groupie.
But the thing I was not intending to be, but after the fact I was like, oh, but we legit got along very well.
Yes. Okay, so amongst the more normie crowd that wasn't weirdos like us, Friendster was really popular. Like, when it launched, normal people loved this so much that they crashed the servers all the time just trying to log on to Friendster. And, like, Friendster was not equipped to keep up with all of the demand. So, basically, the year after Friendster launched, 2003, MySpace launched, and people flocked to it because they literally were just tired of Friendster crashing all the time and them not being able to log on. So people were just looking for any sort of more server-stable fix for their budding social media obsessions. And MySpace then became the new hub for normal people, yes, but also subculture teens. And I remember thinking that was weird at the time because the website just looked so dorky to me. Like, it did. It looked like Friendster. White background, blue logo. And all the, social media sites I'd been on, they looked like weird, like, HTML, shitty, early internet punk zines. Like, they were like, like, we're fucking weird. But yeah, MySpace looked really dorky. And I didn't join because of that until, like, 2005, specifically because it did not look like the ultra cool niche subculture social media sites I'd come to know and love. I was like, it's glossy, it's corporate, I don't like it. But yeah, eventually you couldn't escape it. You couldn't.
Yeah, it was everywhere. Like, oh my God.
So, okay, Kenna, can you describe what a MySpace page looked like for anyone who might have missed it?
Okay, your MySpace page, later you could customize it with your own HTML.
Yes,
but
you
at
could.
first it was basically like, you have a picture, and then you have things about you. So you can say like, favorite movies, favorite TV, books, etc. And then you can basically post a little thing on there. There's like a place to post, like Facebook, but it had your top 8 friends.
Yes.
And you had to be friends with this dude named Tom.
You didn't have to. You could delete him after. He just defaulted as everyone's
He defaulted
first friend.
as your friend.
And it was cool to keep him.
Yeah.
Everyone thought that
it was funny.
Yeah. And then, yeah, you had... Okay, so yeah, your picture was in the top left. Could you have more than one picture?
I think at first it was like only one picture.
Okay. And then,
I think as like it progressed, you got more and more pictures.
yes.
Because I definitely like remember when I finally deleted my MySpace page, I had to like download all the pictures I had on there. I have like no pictures of me from like the age of like 16 to like 25.
Oh, it's so sad. Those are peak internet years.
Actually, no, wait. I just found all my Indie Sleaze photos.
Oh.
Someone randomly posted them on Instagram from when I was in a band that used to play in our VW outside in bikinis / sometimes semi-nude and light firecrackers and throw stuffed animals.
Okay, we gotta post the Safe for Work ones on on our Pick Me Up I'm Scared podcast Instagram.
Yeah. Oh, they're all there's no nudity in them.
Oh, yeah, we should do that. So, yeah, there was, like, your picture in the top left. It had your username. It had a little icon that was, like, online now, if you were online. To the right of your picture, there was, like, your blog is what they called it, where you could post kind of statusy updates, short-form thinking, what you were listening to, what you were into. You could have a song playing later. You could have a song that linked to the band's MySpace page.
I loved it when, like, you first started, like, people were just, like, kind of free jazzing it, and you'd be like, whoa, okay, with your free form poem here, like,
yes,
like people would, like, I remember, like, you'd just be like, oh, like, because people are just like, I don't know what to write.
Yes, so people would write, like, weird, dark, like, blog entries about their lives. They'd be, like, really artsy. And then you had your top 8 friends. So these would be the people, usually that you just thought looked the coolest. And fun story, this is just for you, kind of. My boyfriend Lamson that I dated on and off for 10 years, I met him when I was 18. And the day I met him, I put him in my top 8. And he stayed in my top 8 the whole time. If you were to find my MySpace page somewhere, it would still have Lamson in my top 8.
Wow.
I know. That's how long I've known him. But yeah, and then your friends could leave, like, posts on your wall. They could, like, comment things below your top 8. And that's where your friends would leave, like, show flyers they wanted you to go to. And, you could, like, talk to each other in this little, like, comment box that was public for everyone to see. And, yeah, it was, like, so popular that by 2005, like, everyone was on MySpace. You could not avoid it. So back in 2004, it had become the first social media site to reach 1 million monthly active users. Just 1 year later, there were 25 million MySpace users.
It was huge.
It was huge. It was the 5th most popular website on the internet in the United States at the time.
You know how I have heard the term forgot buster and I cannot get it out of my brain. I'm like, MySpace was a forgot buster. It was something that was so ubiquitous. It's just and now I haven't heard MySpace in years of the name. You know?
Right. I think the people who are really holding it down would have been like emo kids now. Like a teenager like recreated MySpace for their friends and them to use like recently. It's got like this like retro appeal, I think, for young people. Because it was so cool and just such an important part of music and subculture.
Honestly, it was really sick. I felt like I went to so many shows because of I feel like now that I'm not on... MySpace was really the perfect vehicle if you were into going to shows. And
yes.
You were into seeing live music. You were into bands. You were into the scene.
Eventually, when MySpace died, the only thing that lingered was MySpace Music. Because that was the part that bands were using a lot, and it was a really easy... It was kind of like Bandcamp. It was pretty easy to, like, find up-and-coming bands or local bands or find out about shows. But the whole reason why MySpace even died to begin with is that at its peak of popularity in 2005, it sold to this company called News Corp, which is just the most generic, weird, mega company name.
We're a business company.
Yeah, exactly. Business company. And that kind of just started its downfall. It was just never the same after that. But yeah, MySpace to this day, like, remains as this, key pillar of, I would say, the third wave emo scene, but all music in particular. But I think when we think about it, we really associate it with third wave emo. So you had bands like Fall Out Boy and My Chemical Romance and Panic at the Disco. They were picking up steam during this period. And of course, like, visually, the culture of MySpace, it's emo and scene when you think about it. It's going to be permanently etched in our brains forever as... the MySpace angle where you hold your phone up high above you and you have scene hair, which is flat ironed, maybe dyed black, side swept massive bangs, cut short at the top so it's a little spiky, with long pieces hanging below. You've got maybe your lip pierced, you've got your ears gauged, you're wearing really, really, really tight low-rise pants. Like, that's what you think of while wearing a shit ton of eyeliner, holding that camera above your head, looking up into it, and that's your profile photo. Like, that's what I think of when I think of MySpace.
You know what's really funny? I had a way different experience. I didn't even not know what scene was until recently.
Oh, that's wild to me.
Like, all of my MySpace interactions, what probably would now be called, like, indie sleaze.
Yes.
Where it was, like, or, like, bands that were on, like, labels like 31G or something like that, where it was, like, Blood Brothers.
I loved the Blood Brothers.
Like the Locust.
But that was all hardcore. So that was my genre of hardcore.
It was kind of like it was like kind of like almost like the post San Diego hardcore. Because I was into San Diego hardcore when I was like in high school, which was like...
Oh, that's random because they didn't go to your town. I was into it because they came to Fresno.
Well, randomly there was like one person from San Diego who like moved to my small town or something, and then like a bunch of people got in that music. But I was really into like that stuff, which came out of like the DC hardcore stuff. But like, yeah, it was like, I think like bands on that label, like, I was thinking like, yeah, I like Blood Brothers. God, who else? I listened to this band like. I feel like it was just different, and it was like, it was what we called like hipster. It was like everyone dressed like either mod or in the 80s or like, yeah, like indie sleaze, like yeah style.
Oh, right. It was definitely the early 2000s were referencing like that 80s trend cycle. And so I didn't listen to Fall Out Boy or Panic at the Disco or any of that because I was a little bit too old. I was a couple years too old for it. But I think that my experience was probably more akin to what you had, like Blood Brothers and The Locust, and that was the precursor to that emo screamo third wave. We were kind of like still in the second wave of like emo hardcore screamo, and the only difference I think is that in my hardcore scene we used the word scene to talk about the kids who were more fashion-y.
That was not a word in Colorado, which is funny. There was like a band that maybe could have been... Screamo was a big thing. Like there was this band in Denver that I think was considered screamo called Planes Mistaken for Stars.
I remember them. I watched them. I liked that band. They played in Fresno a lot.
I played my first show with them when I was like 15, 16 years old.
Yeah, there was a band in Boulder too, called Grayscale that I was friends with that was part of that whole scene too. And I knew them on MySpace. That's how I met them. They stayed at my house.
Okay, so I did not know that was considered emo.
That's
scene,
emo,
whatever.
yeah. Hardcore.
We called all of that screamo.
So yeah, interesting. This is like a diversion, but it is interesting. So basically, screamo and emo came from hardcore because emo was short for emotional hardcore. Mm-hmm. And the second wave of emo, screamo was kind of integrated into it. And Then when kind of the Warped Tour version of Screamo started to happen, like Pierce the Veil and stuff like that, the hardcore kids got so mad that they came up with a new name for themselves. They were like, we can't be associated with Screamo anymore. The name's been co-opted by like Warped Tour. So we are calling ourselves Skramz, S-K-R-A-M-Z, to separate ourselves. And then my college boyfriend was in a really popular Skramz band called Loma Prieta, which was like huge.
Remember that band for some reason. Yeah, it's really fun. It's funny that I feel like because I grew up in the middle of the country, I get all the weird thing because like people like bands would stop in Denver just because it was the middle of the country, like for no other reason.
Oh, so you had to stop somewhere. You couldn't just drive for 30 hours.
Like you're probably gonna stop in Denver rather than like Iowa or something. Right. I don't remember, but like, yeah. But I feel like I missed a lot. Like now that I live in California, my reference is really different because I meet a lot of people from West Coast, out here, but also from East Coast because, a lot of people from New York moved to LA, but I'm just like, my references are so strange compared to everyone.
Well, it's interesting that you said Blood Brothers because Blood Brothers to us was like the quintessential MySpace era band. Like they were kind of the breaking factor in our hardcore community. Kids who liked Blood Brothers, they were more fashiony, they wore the white belts, we flat-ironed our hair, we had the lip rings, we wore the eyeliner, we wore the super tight pants, and that's really when the older hardcore kids started to call us scene. And, I've talked about this on the internet a lot, but the reason why they called us that is it was derisive. It was like, you guys don't care about the music, you're just here for the scene. And it was kind of a way to like not overtly make fun of, but kind of have a dig at the kids who were really interested in fashion as well as the music. And also the kids who were a little bit more gay. Like all of that was considered like sassy post-hardcore. All the sassy stuff was very queer and effeminate and maybe more inclusive a little bit. And I think the older hardcore bros didn't know what to do with it at all. Like Earth Crisis was from our town. We had older hardcore bros and they saw the Blood Brothers and they were like, I don't know what the fuck to do with this. You all have black flat iron hair and lip rings and your pants are really tight.
I love the Earth Crisis just being confused.
Yes, exactly.
It's so funny to me. But yeah, I feel like it's so funny. Like just, I think like hipster was used like very pejoratively.
Oh yeah, it was.
Because you're like, you're not a real punk, or I don't even say punk, like you're not real, you're a poser.
Yeah, it was like a poser thing, yes. So anyway, while all of this was happening with us youths on MySpace, if you were an adult, you really would not have been interested in MySpace at all. It was definitely a place for young people to talk about music and meet up and go see shows. But there was this other thing that launched around this time that people called MySpace for adults. And do you know what it was?
Facebook?
It was LinkedIn.
Oh, shit.
I know. I didn't realize LinkedIn was that old. And I also didn't really realize LinkedIn was viewed as a social media website. To me, it was always just like a place where you went to get a job. But I
thought
guess
you just posted your resume there and hoped that like someone would find it.
That's what I thought too. But no, people do consider it social media and people do updates on there just like they would have on MySpace. And it's obviously still around to this day and going strong. And also the same year, MySpace launched and LinkedIn launched. This random fucking nerd at Harvard named Mark Zuckerberg launched this website called FaceMash.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
I did not know that. I did not watch The Social Network because
I haven't seen it.
It just looks like something. No, I hate shit like that. I'm like, I don't need to hear about this. This will just make me angry.
Okay, well, if you think Facebook is angering, FaceMash is even worse. So it's supposed to be like Harvard's version of hotornot.com, but it pitted women against each other. So you'd see photos of two women and then you would vote on who was hotter. And of course, just to make it extra creepy, these women did not consent to being on this website and had no idea their pics were on it.
What the fuck?
So unlike Hot or Not, where you would upload your own photos and you had to have an account and you had to upload pictures of yourself and it was very controlled, FaceMash was just the pervy, creepy, gross version of that.
No wonder this man couldn't make legs in Meta.
Yes.
He sounds terrible.
He's awful. So Mark Zuckerberg, is just this weird little creeper freak loser, and I will never fucking forgive us all for making him rich. Like, ew. So I have a direct quote here from him. He wrote this in his journal the night he launched FaceMash, the worst name. Okay.
Jesus.
Are you ready for the quote?
No, but go ahead, please.
Okay. I'm a little intoxicated, not gonna lie. So what if it's not even 10 p.m. and it's a Tuesday night? What? The Kirkland dorm Facebook is open on my desktop, and some of these people have pretty horrendous Facebook pics. I almost want to put some of these faces next to pictures of farm animals and have people vote on which is more attractive. And of course, this is before Facebook, the website, as we know it, launched. So back then, a Facebook was literally just like a book. It was kind of like a yearbook that colleges would put out at the beginning of the year so you knew who your classmates were. So a few hours after he writes this, he writes, "Yeah, it's on. I'm not exactly sure how the farm animals are going to fit into this whole thing. You can't ever really be sure with farm animals, but I like the idea of comparing two people together."
What?
Yeah, and then boom, Face Smash is born. And obviously Harvard is not too happy about this. They're like, you are breaching security, you're violating copyrights, and you're violating individual privacy, because he hacked into the system to download people's picture files so that he could put them on the website. But they still let him stay at the school. And then the following year, 2004, this is when we know that he launched Facebook as we think of it today. The popular misinformation website indoctrinating your Aunt Pam. So back in the early days, though, it was called The Facebook, which is somehow even more awkward, and it was only open to college students. Do you remember this?
Yeah, because I was on Facebook before it was for the general population. You had to have a .edu email address.
Yes, I totally remember this. And I think you mentioned this when we talked about Friendster, but it totally was just a Friendster ripoff. It was Friendster.
It basically was Friendster, and the only thing different, which I remember being creepy at first, was the wall. Because you could see, back on MySpace, if someone commented on your wall, you only see what's on your wall.
Yes.
You don't see what's on everybody's wall all at once.
Yeah, and it did have the status updates, which to me was the big defining feature of Friendster, and now I think we think of the Facebook status update. That's what we think of.
Yeah, but it did really come from Friendster.
It did. Right. He stole all of that from Friendster. And then by 2005, Facebook had 1 million users. So people were really eager for social media, I think.
Oh, when I was on because it broke, it's because that came out the second year I was in college, maybe first year.
Mm-hmm. Probably first year, yeah.
Yeah, and it was huge on campus, huge. But I noticed it was mainly huge with the jocks.
Yeah, I feel like for subculture weirdo freaks, we had social media for so long because we had these weird message boards and these weird communities going on. So I think for normal people, they were late to the party and they were really looking for something that made sense for them. And I think that's where we ended up with these more, I would say, corporate aesthetic kind of social media platforms that were more generic, less branded, less niche. And Facebook was really it. So in 2005, when they hit 1 million users, they dropped the out of the name, so it just became Facebook instead of the Facebook, and they bought Facebook.com for $200,000. So they were doing pretty well by this point. Also in 2005, another titan of social media dropped, YouTube.
Oh, yeah. You know what's wild is I remember the first time someone told me to go on YouTube, and it was a professor being like, you should go on YouTube to learn more about how to do, I think it was Photoshop or Illustrator.
Yeah, you could do tutorials.
Which is funny because now, that's what they will tell you, in college.
Right.
They're like, go do a tutorial.
Yes, and it was quickly followed by Reddit, and we also had photo sharing getting popular around this era too. I know when I was on Mad Rad Hair, we used PhotoBucket.
I was going to say PhotoBucket.
And then later Flickr came out, and a lot of people moved to that. But they weren't super social. There was maybe a little bit of a social element to Flickr, but most people use them kind of just how we use Dropbox today. It was just a place to store your pics or whatever. And now it's important to note that by 2005, social media use in the United States is still pretty low. Just 5% of Americans are using social media, and the rest of the internet, for the most part, doesn't even really know it exists.
Yeah, I feel like when I would talk to my mom or my cousins, they'd be like, what?
Right. So it was really just young people using it. So in 2006, though, two important things happen. Facebook officially opens up for anyone to join. You don't need the .edu website or email, and also Twitter launches. Originally, though, Twitter was kind of weird. I think, like you mentioned, Kenna, in the early days, Twitter was like you texted. It was like a texting thing. Also, there were no vowels in the name. It was like TWTTR. And it was basically the status update part of Friendster and Facebook, but just that. And it makes more sense when you think about the fact that it was supposed to be this tool that just sent mass text messages to your friends about what you were doing. And that's why there was a 140 character limit. It was supposed to be really, really short. But you have to keep in mind, this was back in the days of SMS text messaging, which was really awkward and really expensive. iPhones didn't even come out until the year after Twitter launched. So there was no iMessaging, and text messaging, we got charged per text message at the time. SMS is what it was called. And a lot of people ended up running up their phone bills with this whole Twitter thing. It was new, they weren't really sure what was going on, but they were into it, and people just had these massive phone bills as a result of it. And that kind of prompted a shift in the direction of Twitter away from, text updates just to like a social media site as we think about it. Then in 2007, finally the iPhone comes out, and we also see Tumblr come out at the same time. And this kind of shifts people's focus on the internet maybe away from long-form blogging into this new direction, which is microblogging. Do you remember that term, microblogging? Everyone was talking about microblogging in 2007.
Like Tumblr?
Yeah, it was like Twitter and Tumblr, basically. It was just a word to describe things that were super short format, small sentences, like the 140 character limit on Twitter, or individual images or links that you could share on Tumblr. And Tumblr was actually launched by a 17-year-old named David Karp in his bedroom in his mom's New York apartment.
Cool.
But still, yeah, microblogging had a grip on the world. It was like the trend buzzword that year. And that same year, microblogging megalith Twitter introduced something that would change the internet forever. Can you guess what it is? It's the hashtag.
I remember this. And people lost their minds. They were like, oh my God, a hashtag. And on the news, they're like, what is a hashtag?
Yes, exactly. People fucking lost it for the hashtag. They loved it. It made it easy to group topics on social media platforms together. It made it easy to spread awareness about things like the Occupy movement. And it made awkward internet jokes funny. Like, my car caught on fire today. Hashtag blessed. You could be funny in a new way. And actually, the hashtag was so popular that it brought more people to Twitter just because they wanted to use a hashtag.
Wow.
Yeah, and microblogging and smartphones at this time really start to seem like a match made in heaven. We see that the smartphone gets more popular right alongside social media platforms. So in 2008, when Apple launched the App Store for the first time, Facebook was the number 2 free download for the entire year.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
I feel like that's why people got iPhones, is so they could check their Facebook on their phones.
They really had this symbiotic relationship, social media and the phone. They work together, and I think we still see that today. So yeah, going forward from this point, smartphones and social media get really embedded in each other, especially for younger generations. So then around 2009, we see some more developments happening in social media. China gets its own version of Facebook and Twitter called, I think, Weibo. It's Weibo. And the most important app maybe in history launches Grindr, which was like a cultural reset. Do you remember that?
It's that old?
I know, I felt like it was more recent. But yeah, it was a geosocial dating app for gay and bisexual men, which was supposed to help them safely meet other gay and bisexual men in close proximity to them for dating and hookups. And it did actually revolutionize hookup culture and lay the foundation for Tinder and Hinge and Bumble and all these sites as we think of them today.
Oh, so wait. Tinder is just the straight version of Grindr.
Exactly.
When I always thought it was the opposite.
No, Tinder is the straight version of Grindr.
Wow,
Yes.
I was so wrong.
Yeah, when Grindr came out, I remember being really, really jealous that it didn't exist in a way I could use it. Because I remember, some of my friends were on Grindr, and I was like, fuck, that seems cool. But yeah, it did revolutionize hookup culture. It kind of helped keep gay men safer, too, when they were trying to date for a while, at least until the homophobes found it, and then it became kind of yucky and hard for people, too. But for a brief period of time when, mostly just gay people knew about it, it did make it safer to just hit on random people, without being afraid that something scary would happen to you. So then the next year, 2010, Instagram officially launches. And Kenna, do you remember the first time you heard about Instagram?
Oh, yeah, because I knew a bunch of people who they're like, oh, I just got on there. They got all, now you'd be like, oh my God, you got the usernames that was at eyeball or
Yes.
I think I have I was on Instagram pretty early.
I was definitely in it relatively early. So like in 2010, I was really into long form blogging. Like I had a Blogger account, I was doing fashion blogging, and everybody in the fashion blogging community started to talk about this new thing called Instagram. But I don't think I joined Instagram myself until 2011, and I think I probably lurked for a few months before starting to post content. And the very first picture I posted, I looked at it today, it was on August 12th, 2011. Can you guess what it was a picture of?
What?
It was MoDog. It was my dog. And it had a horrible old-timey filter over it.
Okay, that was the jam.
And
though.
yeah, because we were all into like retro, hipster,
I was like,
indie.
oh my god, it looks like an old Polaroid.
Yes.
Not knowing, not age. It's so funny because I see sometimes people my age or a little bit older who will post an Instagram with the filter on it, and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, we don't do that anymore. But back at the time, it was very cool.
But
with
I'm
young
just
people.
like, oh sweetie.
Yes. Every picture you posted on Instagram had to have a weird retro filter on it to look like an old Polaroid. And I really think that Instagram launching solidified the generational approach to social media. So by 2010, I think that millennial parents, like the parents of millennials, not millennials who were parents, we were still pretty young then, I think that they were officially finding Facebook. So millennials, we all fled to Instagram to escape the parents who were on Facebook. Because you didn't want your parents to be your friends on a social media app and see what you were up to.
Yeah, because they'd be like, I saw you in the thing, doing the thing.
Do it at this weird party. Like, why was that person naked behind you doing a handstand? And you'd be like, I don't want to talk about this. So yeah, then kind of like Instagram became the millennial app. And Facebook became maybe the Gen Z or Boomer app. And
the
now,
Gen X.
Oh, Gen X. Sorry. Gen X or Boomer app. Yes. And then now, TikTok is the Gen Z app.
Yes.
Totally.
Sorry, I was like the Gen Z.
No,
when I was like,
no,
when
no,
did the Gen Z? But yeah, it is funny how the apps are generational. I remember when Snapchat came out, and my friend was a high school teacher, and she was like, "Oh my god, the Snapchat, blah blah blah." I'm just like, "What?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, well, you know, you have to keep your Snap streak, or else you're not friends." And I'm just like, "What?" Like just not getting it at all. And then I was like, "Wait, am I old now?"
Yes. I'm very interested to see the social media that resonates with Gen Alpha when that happens. That's going to be interesting.
Although I think TikTok is great.
I like TikTok.
Like that's the Gen Z app I'm like, I am here for, but the Snapchat, I was like, meh.
Yes. Also in 2010, at the same time Instagram launched, Pinterest launched. And working in fashion, I have to admit, Pinterest is probably still my most useful social media platform that I engage with today. Like, I don't really utilize the social element of it too much, but as a place to create mood boards, it is unfucking matched. Like, I wish I had this shit in college, and we still use it at work. Mm-hmm. Pinterest a lot. It's a very useful tool. So then, in 2011 is when Snapchat launched, and it was originally called Picaboo. And Snapchat was different, right? Because your content would vanish after 24 hours, and teenagers, yes, fucking loved it. They could send each other raunchy photos. They could send each other messages about things they were doing that were bad. They were breaking the rules that they weren't supposed to do. And their parents would never know because it all disappeared. They could also put on, cute filters. And everyone famously loved that dog filter.
Oh,
Everyone was obsessed
the
with that.
dog filter.
Yeah, people were like taking the dog filter to plastic surgeons, being like, I want to look like the dog filter, but without the dog. And the plastic surgeons were like, I don't know what's happening. So also like Instagram, it was a good place for teenagers to escape Facebook, to get away from their parents who are suddenly sending them friend requests and making them feel super stifled in their ability to socialize with other teenagers and build their own identity with privacy and discretion that I think you need in your teenage years. So I'm of the firm belief that you should not send a friend request to your child on any social media platform until they themselves have a child. Then I think that's when you're allowed to do it. Otherwise, you got to give them their privacy. You got to give them their space, But I don't think the parents get that. So by 2018, 73% of people under the age of 25 were using Snapchat, but only 3% of people over the age of 65 used it. So it was really a generational app for young people. Now, that same year, Google did this really awkward, embarrassing thing where they launched Google Plus. Do you remember this?
Yeah, I felt like I was confused by it.
Yeah, it was super confusing. It was like their version of Facebook maybe, but it was really awkward. It just kind of integrated itself into other Google features rather than just being the standalone site that they had hoped, and it kind of faded into oblivion. And then, also that same year, Twitch launched. Obviously, is just an online live streaming platform for gamers. And then over the next few years, we see some random shit happen. Vine gets popular, then dies. A weird little app called Music Alley launches in 2014. Selfies go mainstream. Facebook hits 1 billion users, whatever. Then in 2015, we see that live streaming thing that Twitch was doing, that starts to kind of hit in this major way. So this app Periscope comes out, and all of a sudden you can see people live streaming all over the planet. And people in my life, though, just kind of used it as a way to advertise online porn and make some quick cash for flashing men on camera. That was their whole thing. So, like, someone I know said that, like, oh, whenever I want to go out but I can't afford to, I just go on Periscope and I live stream just myself in my bedroom, something safe for work but mildly sultry. And then when men were inevitably creepy, like, hey, she'd be like, oh, yeah, I'll send you a picture of my boobs for $25. And then they'd always be like, okay. And then they'd PayPal her $25 and she'd email him a picture of her boobs. And then she's like, next thing you know, in 20 minutes, I got $100 and I can go out.
Wow.
And I was like, you are really using live streaming brilliantly. This is innovation.
Oh, wait. Do you remember Chat Roulette?
Yes, I definitely remember Chat Roulette.
Because it was funny because someone, I think on Twitter was like, no one will ever, like, millennials will only know the joy of doing Chat Roulette. Okay, so Chat Roulette is basically like it randomly picks someone, like you are on your video on your phone, like a FaceTime.
Yes.
And it'll randomly just pick a person to FaceTime.
And then you're just FaceTiming some random person.
And usually 9 times out of 10, they're jerking off.
Yeah, most of the time their dick is out.
But my friend used to do this and she had so much fun with it because she was like, yeah, we'll just talk. Like, she and her buddies would just get drunk and do it, and they would like, she's like, but they would like make friends with the people. They were like into making friends with the people on Chat Roulette.
Yes.
But this like Twitter that I saw was like, no one will know the joys of doing Chat Roulette where you turn on the camera and then you have your friends pretend to kidnap and rob you and then suddenly turn off the camera and see and just like laugh thinking about how the other people are reacting.
Yeah, Chat Roulette was definitely a place where you went to like shock people on the other side of the camera usually, but some people did just use it to talk to people and make friends. And then there was the Carly Rae Jepsen music video that was based on Chat Roulette.
Oh yeah, I mean Chat Roulette, yeah, was just like a very flash in the pan thing where people were like, yeah, I'm gonna do Chat Roulette. Until, like, you know, eventually, just after, you know, a week, everyone's like, it's just weirdo people jerking off.
Yeah, it's just
like,
a lot of dicks.
That's like,
fun for a minute.
Do you know about the Jeremy Renner app?
Yes.
So Jeremy Renner, aka, oh god, I was like the Arrow guy in the Marvel movies.
Yes, that's his name, I think, formally.
But he launched his own social media app about Jeremy Renner. And it got shut down in like a day because someone was like, said like, just like someone trolled.
Not just one person.
I think everyone was just being like,
from Twitter trolled it hard.
Trolled it so hard, being like, I forget what the I feel like everything from like, just like saying like fart jokes and poop comments and like.
Yes, the Jeremy Renner app was overrun by people from Twitter trolling it, and this is what I was talking about, where you have that like the backlash and then the backlash against the backlash. So when Jeremy Renner dropped his own app, everyone on Twitter was like, who the fuck does this guy think he is? This guy doesn't deserve his own app. This is the most self-obsessed, bizarre thing ever. So everyone flooded it, trashed it, and Jeremy Renner was like, that's it, no more app. But then after that happened, then everyone in the media was like, oh, actually, the Jeremy Renner app was too pure for this world. It was good, and we ruined a sweet, pure thing that was just a man who wanted to talk to his fans.
But basically, Chat Roulette got Jeremy Rennered.
Yes, it got Jeremy Rennered. Definitely. By dicks, though. Yeah.
By dicks.
The dicks Jeremy Rennered Chat Roulette, yes. So, okay, but back to the live streaming, you know, you've got Twitch is kind of starting out. Periscope gets popular, flash in the pan, too, really fast, like Chat Roulette. And everyone, though, was kind of interested in live streaming. So the next year, in 2016, Facebook introduces Facebook Live, which is its live streaming platform. And by 2016, also, Snapchat is getting really popular. And Instagram is like, hey, Snapchat is kind of coming for our market share. We can do that, too. We're going to launch this thing. We're going to launch stories. And that was their version of Snapchat, obviously, where you could just post pictures with filters on them, or just plain, or add text, or whatever. And it goes away after 24 hours. And I remember when this came out, everyone just used it to tell people to follow them on Snapchat. And I did not think this was going to stick at all. And there were all those jokes about how, like, Facebook ended up adding stories, and pretty much, like, every social media platform then had stories. And there was, like, a meme that was a picture of an avocado with, like, stories posted on it. And it was like, damn, everything has stories now, even this avocado. But then over time, it did a pretty good job of, you know, retaining people on Instagram, and people did start to use Instagram stories more regularly than Snapchat. And this was actually a pretty successful bid at winning over Snapchat users, or retaining Instagram users at least, so they didn't flee to Snapchat. So now when I talk to my friends about Instagram, most of them concede that they pretty much only use it for stories now.
Yeah, I mean, like, a hard post, it's, like, important. Or it's, like, your hot photos go on the hard post.
You're sexy on the hard post, but not too sexy. If it's too sexy, it's on a story.
If it's too sexy, it's close friends.
Yes. And also the same year, something else major happens, and that's that TikTok launches. But remember that weird little app, Musical.ly? Well, it started out as a place where you just would dance for 15 seconds and lip sync to part of your favorite song. But by 2018, after just 2 years, TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, acquired Musical.ly and merged it with TikTok, creating this, like, super platform of sorts. And this hits hard. So in 2018, TikTok becomes the most downloaded app in the App Store.
Wow.
Yeah. And do you remember the first time you heard about TikTok?
Honestly, it wasn't until the pandemic.
Right. So the first time I heard about it was before the pandemic, but it was from our friend and coworker, Baby Lungs.
Oh, yeah.
Baby Lungs was like, you got to get on this new platform. You're going to love it. It's so much more fun than Instagram. And this was in 2018. So just like I did with Instagram, I downloaded the app and I made an account, but I just kind of lurked for a while. I, like, watched people dance and lip sync, and it was still very much the culture of Musical.ly. People made jokes about Musical.ly being gone because it was super, super recent. And then around 2019, when the pandemic hit, that's when I was like, okay, I've got some downtime. I'm going to try to figure out how TikTok works. I'm going to try to do it. And that's when I started posting. And if this was a movie, this is where you would cue the ominous foreboding music, because I did not know what fresh hell I would unleash into my own life. But yeah, TikTok is unique, most people say, because it has a really fucking nuanced and developed algorithm, which some users say knows them better than they know themselves. My algorithm, for example, knew I had ADHD before I did.
Same.
Right. Some people report that their algorithm knew they were gay before they did.
Wow.
I know, it's impressive. And it's all fun and funny to joke about, but it kind of leads us to a serious question about social media. How much does it know about us? What's it doing with that info? How much is using it impacting our lives? And is this all okay? Yeah, so to answer these questions, I think first we have to understand how exactly these social media websites are making money. Back in the early days of, like, the niche subculture social media websites like Makeout Club and Mad Red Hair, nobody was making money off them. Individuals just ran the sites. They would try to generate enough money to pay for, like, the server or, like, the website domain or whatever, just by having, like, random sidebar ads that were really cheap that usually, like, your friend's band would take out for, like, $5. Mostly, though, they would, like, crowdsource help from users. They'd be like, hey, I need help with this coding project. Hey, I need to organize this thing. Is anybody down to help? And if you were a user on the platform and you knew how to code, you'd be like, oh yeah, I'll help you with that, man. I'll message you. And it was more like, yeah, really a community effort. It was a labor of love. And it was not how we think of social media today, which is, you know, a major corporation peeling back your skin to stare inside your brain and be like, how does it work? You know, and then sell that for money. These were passion projects. They weren't businesses. Now, though, obviously, social media is a big business. And when you have a problem, you can't just, like, I am a guy named George sitting in his bedroom to fix it for you. Also, George from Mad Red Hair, thank you for your service. But social media is now this opportunity to make a lot of money, and mostly because a lot of people use it. So in the United States, adults today spend more than 6 hours per day on digital media of some kind. And according to a survey from Pew Research Center, adults aged 18 to 29 in the United States are more likely to get their news indirectly via social media than, like, directly from a newspaper or news website. They also report being online in what they called, in quotes, almost constantly.
Yeah.
So it's not just young people, though, using social media. I think there's this, like, thing in our heads where it's like the young people with their phones. No, it's just everybody is kind of using social media and the internet in general more and more and more every year. It's really being integrated as a public utility in our lives. So, like, remember how in 2005, the percent of all U.S. adults using social media was just 5%? Mm-hmm. By 2019, that number had increased to 79%.
Wow. it's like at this point, I feel like I'm surprised it's not even more. The only people that I know are not on social media like at all is my grandma, who is almost 90.
Right, it would be the very elderly. There's also evidence that rich countries in general tend to be online a lot more. And the number of hours spent online does increase every single year. So there's this thing we talk about sometimes called the OECD, which is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. It's basically just a group of 38 wealthy nations worldwide whose goal is to stimulate economic progress and world trade. So it's just this group of neoliberal capitalist countries who love the free market, which isn't great. But it is a convenient metric to compare wealthy nations with access to resources to each other. Just check in and be like, what are they doing with their money? What are you doing with your money? So when we look at these wealthy nations in the OECD, we see that in 2018, the average time young people, like aged 14 to 24, spent online, it was a little over 4 hours per day, which is significant, even if it is lower on average than the amount of time people spend online in the USA. What it shows us, though, is that there's a correlative link between a nation's wealth and its citizens' use of social media, either for entertainment or information, which I think is fascinating. It makes sense too, because it's like you have to be in a relatively wealthy nation to have smartphones and internet access and the infrastructure for internet and like a computer, available. By 2022, the amount of time U.S. adults spent online, it went up even further to an average of 8 hours per day.
Whoa.
And the more time we spend online, the more of a chance social media companies have to make money off of us, either via advertising, service fees, or data mining. So in the year 2021, social media companies made $153 billion using these three kind of revenue flows. Okay, in order for them to make money off of us, they gotta make sure they're keeping us on their thing, right? That's the big goal. And the thing that they use to make sure they milk every penny from us that they can is this thing called persuasive technology. Do you know about this?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, so persuasive technology is kind of like a big umbrella term. It includes a lot of things. It includes smartphones, for example. This psychologist named B.J. Fogg, which I'm just going to say is a really unfortunate name. Okay, it's a bad fucking name. B.J. Fogg.
I think it's cool.
Okay, good. You're a better person than I am. He's widely considered to be the godfather of persuasive technology. He's a professor at Stanford in Palo Alto. He works in the Stanford Persuasive Technology Lab, and it's built to produce what they call machines designed to change humans, which sounds pretty cool. I think it sounds cooler than maybe it actually does. But this guy, B.J. Fogg, he's super influential in the field of social media. One of the founders of Instagram started out as a student of his. And the thing about persuasive technology of any kind is that its primary goal is to create a digital environment that modifies parts of the user's brain. And it sounds kind of scary, right? But in truth, the world around us, even the IRL world, is modifying our brain too. Our brains are a bit like computers themselves. They take in info, they craft a complicated equation to process that info, and it modifies how the brain behaves based on this new information they have. We're building patterns, we're learning things all the time. The thing about persuasive technology, though, is that it's able to do all of this just in a much more efficient way than regular offline world around us could. And that has to do with that stuff we were talking about at the beginning of the episode, about just like how efficient communication became with the internet compared to communication that came before it. If we use Instagram as an example, at its core, we see that it's just socializing with other people, right? In real life, human interactions, though, are complicated and layered and confusing. But socializing on Instagram, by comparison, just feels a little bit more clear-cut. There are likes, there are comments, you can quantify the reactions people are having to you, you can read succinct soundbite style comments that give you summaries of how people feel. The appeal for users is that it's easy to understand, and it actually makes a complicated world seem clearer. Instagram, in a lot of ways, makes socializing more efficient, and companies like that for a few reasons. One, they can control the message. 2, they can control your dopamine hits. And 3, they can get you addicted to the digital environment so you keep coming back for more. From there, they can then monetize your presence there. So persuasive technology is considered successful if 3 factors are effectively controlled: motivation, ability, and triggers. Since social media is a form of persuasive technology, those 3 factors for something like a social app might be motivation in the form of social acceptance and avoidance of social rejection, ability and the ease of use of the app, down to things like UX design and algorithmic feeds, and triggers in the form of notifications and ever-refreshing feeds that remind you to keep checking in. And when all three of these things are effectively controlled for, you're effectively controlling the users on your social media platform. So Ramsey Brown, the founder of an LA persuasive tech startup called Dopamine Labs, explains it this way. We've now developed a rigorous technology of the human mind, and that's both exciting and terrifying. We have the ability to twiddle some knobs in a machine learning dashboard we built, and around the world, hundreds of thousands of people are going to quietly change their behavior in ways that, unbeknownst to them, feel second nature, but are really by design.
Wow.
And that's pretty scary. To me, that's scary. People are puppet masters, and we're just the puppets, basically. And the result of all of this is that these platforms end up being super addictive intentionally, because the goal of it is to keep users engaged. So there's this guy, Doug Smith, who's the author of the book called Unintentional: How Screens Secretly Shape Your Desires and How You Can Break Free. And he says that not only are we distracted, we almost have to be distracted by social media. The apps are designed to cause us, for example, if we have 5 seconds to wait in line, the first thing we'll think about is pull out your phone and see what happened on Twitter. That's all by design. They do all these kinds of things, and, they run thousands of experiments on us individually with buzzwords of the day, big data, AI, machine learning algorithms that we all hear about, to try to figure out what they can do that will keep us more and more and more engaged. So they're doing whatever they can to keep us engaged on these platforms, because that keyword engagement, that's the whole goal. It's to keep us on the platform as long as possible. If we didn't click the button, why didn't we? Try a different experiment until they literally weaponize the experience so that we will do what they want us to do. And Doug Smith says, when I say that that's shaping our desires, that's what I mean. Our desires end up forming how we make our decisions, and we apply our free will to the desires that they have created in us. So Andrew McDiarmid, who's a senior fellow at the Discovery Institute, says, the dopamine pleasure cycles that these screens can induce in us are similar to those who are taking serious drugs. I mean, it's really a trick of the brain to trick the brain into the cycle of pleasure. This tech doesn't really form desires or create addictions in us by accident. What do the builders of apps and tech gadgets and streaming platforms know about us that we often don't even realize? How we use our free will can be exploited. So that's why these companies that are making the devices we all see and the software we all use hire top behavioral psychologists, neuroscientists, and apply this technology, weaponizing these ideas to manipulate us. And this all checks out. 66% of Americans check their phone 160 times per day, which obviously isn't all going to be social media, but social media is a big part of it, and that's a big number. And we know that it means a big opportunity for companies to make money. So in one survey, 45% of participants said they would rather give up sex for a year than give up their cell phone.
Whoa.
I know. And 32.7% say that they spend more time on their phone than they do with their partner. And to companies, this is awesome because it means a huge chance for income. So basically, these companies keep us there by making social media sites like cocaine or a casino, or doing cocaine in a casino.
Cool.
It's super fucking addicting. They get us addicted so we stay on the platform as long as possible, and once we're there, they'll figure out how to monetize it. Now, social media platforms know that they can keep users coming back more and more and more, but they also, do need to figure out how to convert that into cash flow in order to remain afloat. And therein lies the paradox. Users are coming back for the social interaction, but things like advertisements and branded content can be obstacles to users, standing in between them getting the social interaction that they're looking for. So attempts to monetize through traditional advertising can actually drive your user base away if you lean into it too hard. So in order to effectively monetize via advertising, social media platforms have to prioritize advertisements that seem organic and like they fit into the digital environment that they've created. So the goal for users is that they don't even realize that they're being advertised to. And that's how you keep users online longer and can potentially show them even more ads. You just have to make sure you're not showing so many ads that the user disappears completely. And this is why social media platforms have to monetize in other ways too, beyond just advertising revenue, even though advertising revenue is their biggest source of income. And this is where they do things like data mining. And this is why maybe, I don't know if you've heard this phrase, Kenna, if something is free, you are the product. Have you ever heard this?
Oh, yeah, I have.
Yeah, I actually heard this for the first time in reference to ladies' night at bars.
Oh.
Yeah, if you're drinking for free, it's because you're the product.
Wow.
Yeah, right? But it works in a social media context too. these companies aren't necessarily selling your name or your email address or your phone number. Usually they're selling something way more complicated. They're selling things like your post histories, filtered, sampled, and batched for maximum efficiency. Our usage history is filtered into groups and data sets that make us easier to understand and target for marketing on this massive level. Data selling of this nature makes up between 11 to 13% of Twitter's revenue alone, depending on your source.
Yeah, and I read a bunch of stuff that, basically now that advertisers are fleeing, they're just going to be watching you and selling your data.
Right, because of the whole Elon Musk thing. He
Yeah.
made it like a free speech platform, and advertisers are like, I don't really feel comfortable advertising where people are just, saying slurs and doing whatever they want. It's sketchy, so they are pulling out. So, right, it has to switch to other methods of monetization. And then also, going along with this, there's Facebook, right, who famously ran into scandal with that whole Cambridge Analytica thing. You remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Facebook has always been kind of, in the muck when it comes to data and privacy. One email chain made public showed that Mark Zuckerberg proposed charging developers a monthly fee to just be able to regularly access user data whenever he wanted. So when Facebook speaks publicly, they'll use words like people, persons, anyone, just to kind of describe how they view users on the site. But in private correspondence, Facebook executives are more likely to refer to people as either customers or users. The account holders aren't customers, they're the users. The customers are companies who want all the information they can get about the users.
Yeah.
So that is really who Facebook is targeting. They're not targeting users, they're targeting businesses. They maintain that they don't sell data, they're just selling access to customers. And that's really just a matter of semantics at the end of the day. And even when the data isn't being sold directly, issues of privacy and control are still a major issue to contend with. Like in 2014, contractors and employees of that data group, Cambridge Analytica, acquired private Facebook data for tens of millions of users, which they then compiled into psychological profiles of American voters to try to sway the upcoming presidential election. The company's own lawyer was like, hey, I think this is probably violating American election law, you shouldn't do this. But they just did it anyway. Cambridge proceeded to build Facebook-derived profiles of American voters in conjunction with its British affiliate called the SCL Group, who were both in contact with Russian oil companies, random, and Cambridge itself was owned by right-wing Trump donor Robert Mercer, and its board included Steve Bannon as a member, who was, of course, the notorious alt-right aide who helped get Trump elected. Research into the matter showed that in 2014, Cambridge provided Trump's national security advisor, John Bolton, with early versions of these Facebook data-derived voter profiles, which were used in the next presidential election. A former Cambridge employee then testified that Cambridge's British arm helped swing election results also in favor of Brexit, Britain's famous withdrawal from the European Union. And then on top of that, reporting found that this other company called Palantir Technologies, which was funded by Trump backer Peter Thiel, helped Cambridge harvest the data from Facebook for as many as 87 million users. And these profiles they made were deep. These were lengthy psychological profiles assessing 87 million people, how their brains work, what they did, their habits in full. And this, of course, ultimately led to Facebook being sued for failing to protect user data adequately enough. They ultimately settled that case. And in the UK, they were fined £500,000 for their involvement in the scandal. So one of the most important elements of any social media platform, obviously we know, is engagement. And increasing engagement is the singular goal that drives all of the decision making at these major social media companies. The more they get you engaged on the website, the more they can learn about you. The more they can learn about you, the more they can sell ads to you, and the more they can, sell your data to companies who just want to know more about how our brains tick. But this kind of ties into this idea about misinformation that people are starting to get concerned with. This kind of goes back to when we were talking about how people are just publishing the Lindsay Lohan stories, and then users are generating their own stories, and it gets harder and harder to know what's true or what's clickbait or what's just totally made up. So increasing engagement means increasing revenue, right, for the company and ultimately increasing profit. And that's why algorithms now are the popular default way to assess data. Algorithms are constantly looking for ways to drive users towards the most engaging post for them based on their track record of use. The problem with this is that, the things that bring about the most engagement, they're usually the most sensational things, and they might not even be true. So Twitter is one place where misinformation is really prone to spreading due to this algorithmic engagement bias. As Brookings Institute explains, if a tweet is retweeted, favored, or replied to by enough of its first viewers, the newsfeed algorithm will show it to more users, at which point it will tap into the biases of those users too, prompting even more engagement and so on. At its worst, the cycle can turn social media into a kind of confirmation bias machine, one perfectly tailored for the spread of misinformation. So when people did studies into Twitter and confirmation bias and misinformation and what the algorithm favors and what people engage with more, they found that tweets containing falsehoods were 70% more likely to be retweeted than truthful tweets.
Wow.
Huge number. And lots of people are like, well, maybe it's just bots. And there are bots, but most of these retweets were from humans. In 2017, though, Scientific American did estimate that up to 15% of active Twitter accounts on the whole were bots that were created with the intention of spreading misinformation during the 2016 political campaign.
Wow.
Pretty interesting. Also, Facebook is obviously notorious for fostering misinformation too. An internal Facebook report found that their algorithms enabled disinformation campaigns based in Eastern Europe to reach almost 140 million US users during the 2020 presidential election. And for 75% of those users who were exposed to these disinformation campaigns, there wasn't even like an operator error or like the human brain being like, ooh, sensational. The user didn't decide to follow like a disinformation page. Facebook's algorithm just recommended the post to them. So in the world of disinformation, this is often referred to as the popularity bias. Just because something is popular, though, doesn't mean it's true. So according to this group, Big Think, popularity biases have been found to both lower the overall quality of content on a social media platform and also just like lead to these really fucked up outcomes. Misinformation spreads like wildfire because it's sensationalized, and research shows that social media users are much more likely to share unverified stories than they are to like post a correction when stories have been shown to be false or manipulated. On top of that, this like rapid pace of social media, it accelerates the spread of misinformation. It pushes it faster and further to reach more and more people as quickly as possible. So as this one technical and policy expert explained, maximum engagement strategy pushes information into the public sphere with little regard for critical inquiry or healthy skepticism. They just want to get as many people engaging with as much content as possible. And if you publish a story that's like, Richard Nixon's alive and his head's a block of cheese, people are going to click on it. It's like National Enquirer shit. They don't care.
I was just thinking it was like Bat Boy.
It is totally like Bat Boy, yes, which was obviously the famous... I'm going to call him a cover model. I'm going to say it. Cover girl Bat Boy from the National Enquirer tabloid.
He was the Cindy Crawford of fake tabloid news.
He truly was. I love Bat Boy. Bat Boy, live forever, long live Bat Boy. But yeah, as you can see, this, though, when you're not dealing with just a creature that's half bat, half boy, could potentially have far-reaching political and social implications. According to The Guardian, one whistleblower at Facebook detailed how Facebook officials frequently declined to enforce safety rules for fear specifically of angering Donald Trump and his allies or offsetting the company's huge growth. The document showed that Facebook employees repeatedly flagged concerns before and after the 2020 presidential election when Donald Trump tried to falsely overturn Joe Biden's victory by claiming it was fraudulent without evidence. So a company data scientist told coworkers a week after the election that 10% of every single U.S. view of political content, those were posts that falsely claimed that the vote was fraudulent. But even as workers flagged these issues in order for the company to act, the company just didn't address the problems. Internal documents also showed that Facebook researchers found the platform's recommendation tools repeatedly pushed users to extremist groups, prompting internal warnings that some managers and executives just flat out ignored. In one particularly striking internal study, a Facebook researcher created a fake profile for someone named Carol Smith, who was a conservative female user whose interests included Fox News and Donald Trump. The experiment showed that within 2 days, Facebook's algorithm was recommending that Carol join groups dedicated to QAnon, the alt-right conspiracy theory that believes, amongst other things, that Donald Trump actually is president and JFK Jr. is still alive. So the more this misinformation spreads throughout platforms like Twitter or Facebook, the more credible it also seems. Like, if you say something online enough, it just becomes true, whether it is or isn't. And recent studies have shown that just increasing the exposure of users to these types of unsubstantiated rumors or conspiracy theories like QAnon increases the tendency of other people to consider those rumors to be legitimate or potentially true. Just because it's like, the more people who hear it, it must be real. There must be something to it, is how people think, even if there's absolutely nothing to it.
Like flat Earth.
Like flat Earth, yes. Also, last year, this data scientist named Frances Haugen operated as another whistleblower at Facebook where she used to work. And she shared thousands of pages of internal Facebook documents to the media and federal law enforcement, showing that the company was deceiving the public and its investors about its ability to deal with hate speech and misinformation on the platform. So Haugen was like, Facebook over and over again has shown it chooses profit over safety. I don't trust that they're willing to actually invest what needs to be invested to keep Facebook from being dangerous. And Haugen's leaked documents show that anti-COVID-19 vaccine misinformation flourished on Facebook, that separate rules existed for celebrities and politicians on Facebook than regular users, that VIP users avoided penalties for, just blatantly lying or doing things that violated like codes of conduct on the site, and how Facebook quickly disbanded what it called its civic integrity team, which was responsible for protecting the democratic process and tackling misinformation during the 2020 US election. Like after the election closed, they immediately disbanded it. But shortly after came the January 6th insurrection at the US Capitol, and organizers used Facebook to help plan it. They weren't even doing it in secret. It was just in Facebook groups. And Facebook knew. She also revealed evidence that a change in the formula Facebook uses to direct content to a user's nude feed, and that alone resulted in this belief among European political parties that they had to adopt these more extreme stances just to reach audiences on Facebook.
Wow.
Yeah, so political parties in Europe were like, we have to market to our contingency, so the only way they're going to see our content is if we take on these really, really extreme beliefs. Because then it'll be more clickbaity, it'll be more extreme, and then people will see us more. Ultimately, Haugen's leaked documents detail company research into how Facebook spreads hate, incites violence, and through its Instagram subsidiary, contributes to teenage girls' negative body images and suicidal thoughts. So she ended up saying, Facebook has realized that if they change the algorithm to be safer, people will spend less time on the site. They'll click on less ads, and Facebook will make less money. Weirdly, the thing that is thought to contribute to the rapid spread of misinformation the most is just switching timelines and news feeds away from chronological order into an algorithmic one.
Wow.
So yeah, the real reason Instagram won't give us back our chronological feed that we all want, that would make us go on Instagram more, is because the algorithmic feed favors those sensationalized posts that do generate more time spent on the app and more money for them. But it's not the content that we actually enjoy and want out of Instagram. So they're kind of choosing the short-term technique and compromising their long-term longevity by being like, no, our data still shows you're clicking on the sensational shit that the algorithm favors in your timeline, but it doesn't realize that we're engaging with it, becoming ultimately more and more dissatisfied with the app on the whole because it's not what we actually want to see. And while this is all happening, it could spread misinformation faster. It pushes up these images that maybe are harmful to certain people or not what they want to see. And this kind of brings about, this idea of how social media impacts mental health. It leaves us in this place where, it's not profitable for these companies to stop the flow of misinformation or harmful content, no matter how bad it is for users on the platform. And research shows that in general, negative content, whether it's true or not, spreads much faster than positive content. So basically, when we're on apps, we're seeing a shit ton of negative stuff all the time. And it's not surprising that our constant exposure to social media full of negativity, which is sensationalized and spreading, has spawned a lot of questions about how good this all is for our mental health. We do know that social media has long-lasting effects on how our brains work. There are some really great things about social media. We know that it can have the ability to help relieve stress for people or treat loneliness or treat depression. But there's also some weirder stuff going on too, which we probably need to be paying at least a little bit of attention to. One of the more interesting things is this idea of our attention span. So in the year 2000, research found that the average person's attention span was around 12 seconds. In the year 2020, just 2 decades later, Microsoft conducted a marketing survey and found that consumer concentration actually had dropped roughly 50% since then, down to around 8 seconds. So when this is applied to social media interaction, most Facebook content, for example, gets an average of just 1.7 seconds of attention. And they did this all just to figure out how better to advertise to people, right? But it is an interesting thing to consider because, like anything in life, it's got pluses and minuses with this idea that potentially social media is contributing to us having a shortened attention span. I don't have a great attention span to begin with, so it doesn't seem that different to me, but to other people, it's interesting to think about. One thing researchers have noted is that social media makes us increasingly better at multitasking. So there are some pluses to it, like we can watch TV and be on our phones, for example. And there's nothing inherently wrong with having a shorter attention span, as long as our society is shifting to accommodate that new way that our brains are starting to work because of our exposure to media. The problems come about when society isn't making immediate changes to accommodate our shifting attention spans. So it's like not necessarily bad that we have, a shorter attention span for things, but it's like, well, society has to be built in a way that accommodates that. And in particular, I think about like schools and workplaces.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like if I were to go back to school now, I think it would be really hard for me to maintain focus and attention in most of my classes.
I think it would be really hard for me to maintain focus on anything, that I'm not interested in. Like, if I had to take, like, a math class again, I'd be like, or mainly coding. I find coding very uninteresting.
Yeah, it's, like, just one of those things where it's about accommodation, I guess. I mean, like, Kenna and I, we both have ADHD, so we already have shortened attention spans maybe compared to the average person.
I think the only reason, though, I got through school is because there was no social media. Like, I legit think that's how I got through high school. I mean, there was, but it wasn't like...
It wasn't super addictive.
I did not have a smartphone. Like,
right.
I barely had a laptop.
Right. And it's interesting because you don't want to contribute to this idea like social media bad, technology bad, because it's not like social media is inherently bad or technology is inherently bad. But it's being weaponized against us by these mega corporations so that they can extract billions of dollars of profit from us. And it's worth considering what it's doing to us while this happens.
Yeah, it's like, oof.
Well, like you were saying about how, we had social media, but you didn't have the smartphone. It wasn't in your pocket. You could disconnect when you were at school. Another thing that goes along with this is this idea of addiction. Like, are we actually addicted to social media? Because they create it in a way where it's supposed to be addicting, right? Like gambling or drug use. We're supposed to not be able to put the phone down. That's what they're doing. That's the whole purpose of how it's built. So like Doug Smith and Andrew McDiarmid were touching on when they talked about persuasive technology, the increasing efficiency of social media's digital interfaces means that platforms are getting better and better at making sure we come back for more. The issue with this, though, obviously, is that, social media by design is supposed to be addicting. According to the Addiction Center, social media platforms like Facebook, Snapchat, or Instagram produce the same neural circuitry that's caused by gambling and recreational drug use, just to keep consumers using their products as much as possible. So according to the study that was done by Harvard, self-disclosure on social networking sites lights up the same part of your brain that also ignites when you're taking an addictive substance. So when someone experiences something rewarding or uses an addictive substance, neurons in the principal dopamine-producing areas of your brain, they're activated, and your dopamine levels rise. The brain receives this reward, and then it associates the drug or activity with positive reinforcement. So the constant stream, for example, of retweets, likes, shares, from social media websites or apps, that causes our brain's reward area to trigger the same kind of chemical reaction that we see with drugs like cocaine. And neuroscientists have compared social media interaction to a syringe full of dopamine being injected straight into your system.
I believe it. You know what I was thinking about? Because, smartphone, we were, have spent more than half our lives, without them, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Smartphone, 2007 is when they came out.
Yeah. So, and I'm just like, what did we do? Like, it's so funny now. I'm like, what did I do?
Okay, I have a sad observation I made when I got my first smartphone.
What?
I stopped paying so much attention to my dog. Heartbreaking, right? And I realized it the first year I had the phone, and I was like, this is fucked up.
Oh, yeah, because I'm like, what did I do? I'm like, well, I went to so many shows, and I went out with my friends, like, a lot more.
Yes. Sometimes I give myself, like, screen detoxes of, like, 30 days, where I'm like, I don't watch TV, I don't go on my computer after work, I don't go on my phone when I'm home. And that feels really good. I don't do it that often, though.
I feel like, for me, like, TV is different.
Yeah.
And movies. And I don't really play video games. Although I'm trying to do Ni no Kuni.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, yeah, I think I was just, like, to be honest, I kind of miss it. But also, like, social media has done other things that I think that I am grateful for.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's, like, social media isn't the problem. It's just how it's interacting in our system of capitalism that's positively fucking horrifying.
Because it is really addicting.
It
and
is
I
super
think,
addicting.
having, like, ADHD, your dopamine's, like, fucked up anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, it can be really taken advantage of, you know?
Some people call TikTok the ADHD dopamine app. They're like, we're all here because we have ADHD, you know?
Yeah, it's like, it's...
So there's this Dr. Susan Weinschenk who, in a Psychology Today article, was talking about this, and she referred to it as the scrolling dopamine loop. So you scroll, you hit dopamine. You scroll, you get dopamine. When you bring up the feed on one of your favorite apps, the dopamine loop, it becomes engaged, she says. And with every photo you scroll through, headline you read, or link you go to, you're feeding that loop, which just makes you want more, more, more. And social media addiction, it's a form of behavioral addiction, right? It's categorized by being overly concerned about social media. It's driven by an uncontrollable urge to log in or use social media. And it also might mean you're devoting so much time and effort to social media that it impairs other important life areas. So psychologists estimate that as many as 10% of Americans meet the criteria for social media addiction. And like any other form of addiction or substance use disorder, social media addiction might come with mood modification, where like engagement in social media leads to a favorable change in emotional states. Salience, which would be like behavioral, cognitive, and emotional preoccupation with social media. Tolerance, which would be ever increasing use of social media over time, like you need more, 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 more. Withdrawal symptoms, when you quit using it, like experiencing unpleasant physical and emotional symptoms when your social media use is restricted. Conflict, which is interpersonal problems that ensue because of your social media usage with other people in your real life. And relapse. If you're an addicted individual, you might quickly revert back to your excessive social media usage after an abstinence period. And because like the dopamine parts of your brain light up more, not just when you're on social media, but in particular when you're talking about yourself, some psychiatrists, psychologists think that there's a chance that social media use causes our brains to lean more towards self-centered thinking and away from community or group-oriented thinking, because the reward center of our brains do tend to be more active when we're talking about ourselves. So in the IRL world, people would talk about themselves maybe 30 to 40% of the time. That's pretty standard. But online, people talk about themselves 80% of the time. Which, sometimes it's good to talk about yourself and have an outlet to express yourself. Not necessarily a bad thing to be like, this is what's going on with me. Yay. Especially if it makes you feel happy. But it is, again, just one of those things that's like, oh, that's interesting to consider. Because it is different to how human beings have been interacting for centuries. And for years, researchers have also hypothesized that constantly seeing curated versions of other people's lives, like living their best life on social media platforms, might contribute just to like feelings of inadequacy, comparison, and jealousy. It's this annoying cliche, but studies have shown that there might actually be some truth to this. Recent studies, for example, found that frequent social network users believe that other people are happier and more successful than they are, especially if they don't know them in real life.
Wow.
So, the more you're on social media, the more likely you are to see a stranger and be like, their life's way better than mine, and they're super happy.
I do think that makes sense, because I feel like people I know who have larger, or I've met who have larger followings, like IRL, you're like, normal person. But, if you just saw them online, you'd be like, they're living the dream.
It's true. For most casual social media users, this isn't going to be so much of an issue, but for people who do become addicted to social media or are using it excessively, it could potentially have long-lasting negative effects on your mental health. As the Addiction Center explains, excessive social media use can not only cause unhappiness and a general dissatisfaction with life in users, but it also can increase the risk of developing mental health issues like anxiety or depression. Because constantly comparing yourself to other people can lead to feelings of self-consciousness or a need for perfectionism and order, which can also manifest itself as a social anxiety disorder. On top of that, social media can also increase your feelings of FOMO, which is actually a real thing that has an effect on your brain, just the fear of missing out. Say you're on social media and you see that oh my god, all these people I know went to a party together. Why didn't they invite me?
Yeah.
Or oh, those two people are hanging out. I'm friends with both of them. It would have been cool if they had asked me to come along. That's FOMO. And you're going to feel bad about yourself. It's going to take a toll on your self-esteem. You're going to be what's wrong with me? And then you're going to end up compulsively doom scrolling social media to make sure there's nothing else you're missing out on.
Yeah, I have definitely been there, especially when I was really in my chronically ill era, just being like, oh, I'm at home again. Everyone else is out there, outside, doing the Halloween parties and stuff.
Yes, you were healing, though.
Yes.
You were. That's more important. But I get that feeling a lot. This one study conducted by Harvard University found that actually, yes, social media does have a significantly detrimental effect on the emotional well-being of chronic users in their lives, negatively impacting real-life relationships. And if you're school-aged, it will definitely impact your academic achievement. Some people think that this might just be because if you use social media regularly, you're more likely to also be on your phone before bed, which is like blue light, and it's disrupting your sleep, and it's actually lack of sleep that contributes to all of these things. But, obviously the dominant narrative in society is that, like, oh no, the social media apps are ruining our lives. And I think probably, like most things, the answer is somewhere in between those two. It's probably a little bit of both. Also, a study performed by CSU school, like California State University, found that individuals that visited any social media site at least 58 times per week were 3 times more likely to feel socially isolated and depressed compared to people who use social media fewer than 9 times per week. There was also this 2018 Lancet study that found that social media use led to decreased, disrupted, and delayed sleep. So that whole thing we were talking about, which is, again, associated with depression, memory loss, and poor academic performance. And yet another one found that YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter are all associated with bullying, body image issues, and even the FOMO thing that we talked about, which can contribute to a link in depression and anxiety. And that body image thing, that's important. Another thing people have been saying for years is that, hey, maybe this social media use is contributing to poor body image, which is something we talked about in our episode on beauty standards, which was episode 42, called Who's Hot and Who's Not. And one study from the University of Pittsburgh found a correlation between time spent scrolling through social media apps and negative body image feedback. People who spent more time on social media had 2.2 times the risk of reporting eating and body image concerns when compared to their peers who spent less time on social media. And this is super important, right? Because mental illness, the one with the highest mortality rate, is an eating disorder. It's anorexia. So it's super, super dangerous. Now, of course, there are lots of people you can follow on social media who have body shapes that are more like yours, who have different looking bodies, more diverse bodies. And yeah, if you consume and follow media from people who don't fit that like super, super mainstream, destructive, really, really, really skinny all the time body image, you actually can end up having like better overall body image effects. So it's not just social media, it is also who you decide to follow that contributes to that. But it is something that's like, again, worth just considering. And all of this stuff plays into how young people in the USA are affected uniquely as well. So like the American Psychology Association found that people born after 1995 are more likely to report having negative psychological symptoms just in general. And this could be because there's an increased awareness about mental health issues. It could be because Reaganomics fucked the economy and everyone is depressed about not being able to support themselves, even while working a full-time job, and can't look forward to a life of goodness, only misery. It could be because climate change is killing the planet and everything seems futile. Those would be my biggest guesses. But scientists are also like, well, we can't rule out the fact that internet might also be a factor in this as well. And the reality is, yeah, it's probably a little bit of all of it. And the internet talking about all these terrible things happening all the time probably makes it hard for you to stop thinking about the Reaganomics and the poor income situation and the planet dying. So Jean Twenge, who's the author of this book called iGen and a professor of psychology at San Diego State University, says, we found a substantial increase in major depression or suicidal thoughts, psychological distress, and more attempted suicides after 2010 versus the mid-2000s. And that increase was by far the largest in adolescents and young adults. These trends are weak or non-existent amongst adults who are 26 and over, suggesting a generational shift in mood disorders instead of an overall increase across all ages. So Twenge's survey in 2017 found that major depression was on the rise 52% for adolescents and 63% for young adults. Serious psychological distress was on the rise 71% for young adults. Suicidal thoughts were on the rise 47% for young adults.
Wow. This is just anecdotally, but like when I've said this for years, I'm just like, thank fucking God there was not social media when I was in high school. It didn't hit till like literally the first year of college, because my life would have been a living hell. I would have been fucking cyberbullied, like fuck fucking crazy. Like, actually, my hometown made national news for, like, because I'm just like, this is just the kind of town it is. National news because almost the entire school was involved in a sexting scandal.
Yeah.
So it was like, it's the type of place where, like, I'm just like, thank God. I mean, but maybe it would have been better because maybe it would have been like, I'm not the only weirdo out there. I can, like, hang out with people in, like, another, like, place. But I'm just guessing if social media were around when I was in high school, I would feel very depressed.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's something to what you were explaining. Like, who knows, like, what it is. Because it does, I'm sure, for especially young people, seem annoying and out of touch when parents are like, oh, you're depressed, it's Instagram or TikTok's fault, right?
I was also thinking that, too, because it's just, like, it ignores the fact that our parents are, like, we're the first generation, you know, since, 1940 or whatever, that has, like, a worse life
I think it's Generation X was the first generation that started to get, like, stagnating wages.
Yeah, and it's like, I think they're like, oh, it's the social media. And I'm like, well, the way our society is set up, it's not, like, you say it's a meritocracy when it's not, and also it shouldn't have to be a meritocracy. Like, the way society is set up, it's like it's like a big competition. You're also expected to know what you want to do when you're 17 years old. Like, you take out all these huge loans when you're a teenager to go to college. Like, then you're expected, like, also, like, you know, like, you're expected to live a life like that. To me, seems like the normal, you know, patriarchal, heteronormal lifestyle. Like, it's like, it can be really depressing if you do not fit into this very small little box of, like, what society values here. Like, it's, you know, it's fucking depressing. But they're like, no, it's the Instagram. It's like, no, it's the fucking society.
It's
y'all
all
created.
Of society, right? And Instagram and TikTok and all the apps, they are a part of society. And a lot of ways they do reflect those things. But yeah, it's like hard to look at somebody who's a young person and say, like, oh, okay, your wages are lower than generations before you. Your college has gone up hundreds of % in expense compared to generations before you. Your medical costs are going to be astronomically higher than anybody who came before you. Housing costs are going to be astronomically higher. You will be barely scraping by and barely able to survive. And also, we killed the planet. And then look at them and be like, why are you upset? Why are you sad? Why are you depressed?
Well, this information, you know, like, when I was a teen, I actively looked out, like, I always checked out the books at the library that was like the least news reported stories of 1999.
Yeah.
Like, you know, or I, like, was really into, like, investigate. But honestly, you just didn't have more of that information out there. Like, I had to search for alternative information, you know, like,
yes.
you know, like, lefty information where it's, or not even lefty, but it's like, if you have more of that information, you're like, you know, like, yeah,
I didn't know. You can't forget.
I didn't know all the bad, like, I didn't know all the bad stuff when I was a teenager because I didn't have fucking Twitter or, like, Facebook to
You didn't see it every day.
You didn't see it every day. And I feel like it's like social media is like society on steroids.
Yes, it is. It totally is. And it's good to know. It's good to be aware of things, but there's also only so much that you can take before it starts to affect you. And yeah, it does seem like when parents are like, oh, my kid's depressed because of TikTok and Snapchat, it just sounds very like old man shakes cane at sky. But there is a lot of correlative data that links adolescents who habitually use social media at a young age with a lot of mental health issues. And this kind of touches on what you were saying, Kenna. It's like, if you had social media access when you were in high school, you, in a lot of ways, might be bullied by your peers, but in other ways, it might be a way for you to actually connect with other people. And it brings into this question, like, okay, we know the two are linked. We know that people who use social media more also struggle more with mental health issues, but we don't know that it's causal. We don't know that being on social media is causing it. There's a really good chance that just people who struggle with mental health issues and feel ostracized by society might feel more comfortable on the internet than they do in the real world.
Okay, here's the thing too, where I say that, like, social media is society on steroids. It is a place where the assholes in society are amplified.
Right.
So if you're an asshole IRL, instead of just being an asshole to the
12 people you see.
The 12 people you see, you can be an asshole to hundreds or thousands of people. And then you can find other assholes to connect with and be assholes in a big old asshole group.
Yeah, it's totally true. So like one of the major correlations to this like increased social media use in youths, like compared to potential psychological effects, is that people who use social media more, they are found to be stunted more when it comes to social interaction skills in real life. You know, again, worth noting, this could just be a correlative thing. Like people who struggle to socialize in person might just feel more comfortable socializing on the internet instead. Not necessarily like the internet is making us bad at talking to people. It's not necessarily a causal link. But you can see why if you hear this information and you see the increased rate of, you know, depression and suicidal thoughts amongst young people, and you see the increased rate of social media use, and you hear that like, oh, people who use social media more have a harder time talking to other people one-on-one in society, you can see why parents might be like, it's because of the phones, you know? It's probably not because of the phones if I had to guess, but something's going on there that is real. There's also evidence that social media use is increasingly related to poor health and wellness outcomes for teenagers and young adults, just in general. Again, we don't know if it's causal, could just be correlative. We also know that youth who spend more time on social media have worsened social anxiety in group settings, higher rates of depression, more negative body image, and lowered levels of empathy and compassion towards others. But again, we can't prove that being online causes this. We just know there is a correlation. We also know that the earlier teenagers start using social media, the greater correlation we will see to poor mental health, which again might mean that the internet is breaking kids' brains, but probably, I would guess, just means that people who are extra depressed and anxious seek solace online. They seek community online because they feel ostracized in their IRL landscape. Either way, all of this means that there is a lot of truth to the critique that's been floating around on social media platforms like TikTok and Twitter lately, that some people are just chronically online. They seem not to understand how the world outside of the internet actually functions, but that's not because the internet has done this to them. There's, you know, the potential that these people are people who would struggle in the IRL world either way, and at least online they have some relative safety or comfort to express themselves and socialize with others. So they are chronically online, potentially by their own design, because they feel so otherized by the real world. And again, social media, it is the real world. It is part of our social landscape. I use the real world as like a colloquialism, but what happens online very much is real. We build real relationships with each other. We have real impacts on each other's well-being. We help each other. We harm each other. It is real. We just don't know if being chronically online makes people who are young fare worse in society, or again, if those people who feel ostracized and othered by society already just will enjoy being online more than their peers. So Erin Fobian, who's a clinical psychologist and assistant professor in the Department of Psychiatry, I made up my own word, psychiatry, at the University of Alabama in Birmingham, says, we can't say for certain that the rise we're seeing is the direct result of social media use. For example, teens could have depressive or anxious symptoms and therefore spend more time on social media outlets to look for a way to connect. Even without knowing if the link is causal, there is a point of concern, though, for all of this that we know for certain is caused by internet use and we should be looking out for. Which is kind of what you were talking about, Kenna. Like if you were on social media as a teenager, you feel like you would have been really, really bullied even more than you were, right? What we know without a doubt is that being on social media does increase your chance of being bullied and of being on the receiving end of harmful interactions. And if social media is more attractive to people who may already be dealing with feelings of anxiety, depression, and isolation, they are probably going to be more susceptible to feeling the ill effects of those negative encounters that are definitely going to be more likely to occur on the internet. Young people are struggling now more than ever, and we know that everyone is spending more and more time on the internet than ever before. And we also know that the brains of young people are highly susceptible to reward and social acceptance, as well as to rejection and feelings of not belonging. So young people who are still developing their impulse control, they're going to have a heightened sensitivity to negative input that they receive online, which basically just means young people are going to feel a whole lot worse when someone is mean to them on the internet, and that alone could have a negative impact on their well-being. Despite all of this, 70.4% of individuals say that using social media improves their life satisfaction. even if just slightly. But the people who say this, demographically speaking, are really interesting to consider. While most people across the board do report slight increases in quality of life with social media use, the people who by far are most likely to report an increase of quality of life provided just by interacting with social media, this is like shocking to me, it's married Republican baby boomer men.
What? What?
Yeah. These are the people, their demographic information, they're most likely to be on Facebook or Reddit. These are the people who are like, most likely, overwhelmingly, like, yes, using social media improves my life.
Okay, this makes sense to me with my saying that social media is society on steroids because society already rewards conservative white men.
Yes.
So they're being rewarded just as much online.
Too. Yeah. And the people who are most likely to say social media lowered their life satisfaction, this one is going to kill you. Are you ready?
Sure.
Left-leaning millennial women who are in a relationship. It's us.
Wow. Wait, it's true.
Right. It just kills me because at this point in my life, I actively hate being on social media and I long for the day I can escape it. I thought it was just because of how large my social media following has grown. I didn't realize it was because I was part of a demographic group that just is not having a good time.
Wait, I saw just like on my podcast feed that there's like a new podcast by Jamie Loftus, like who did like Lolita podcast, like just about how terrible people are to mainly women on the internet.
Yes, that makes sense to me.
And I'm like, wow, you need a whole podcast for that? You can just go on the internet every single day.
And just know what it's like to exist as a feminine person on the internet. Obviously, I assume also if you're queer in any capacity, like it's probably going to be a lot harder for you to be on the internet. Also, they had a very binary approach to gender in this study. But yeah, it's pretty wild. Also, an interesting thing to consider is like you're more likely to feel adversely affected by social media if you live in certain regions. So like, can you guess which region is having the worst time on social media?
I don't know, LA?
It's Midwest. It's the Midwest.
Really?
Yeah, they are straight up not having a good time.
Okay, I kind of believe this because to me, like, what I imagine, like, Colorado's not really the Midwest. It's like the West. It's the middle of the country.
It's the West.
Kind of. I would be like, you have to deal with your neighbors on Facebook who are making some sort of fucking wild claims.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like Nextdoor app.
Yes.
Type shit.
Nextdoor app, yes. I would have thought actually that if you lived on the West or in the Northeast region, you would be least negatively affected by social media because of that FOMO thing. It's like, we got a lot of shit going on. We got beautiful nature. We got hiking. We got beaches. We got cities. We got all the cool things here. So I would think that if you lived in like, you know, the general proximity of like New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, like all these places, or like Colorado, like beautiful places, you wouldn't like be as upset looking at other people post about their lives on the internet. But actually the West and what was the other category? It was like the West and the Northeast. Those kind of just fell into the middle level of satisfaction. And the people who actually report enjoying social media the most, it's people from the South.
Interesting.
Yes, very interesting. And these divisions among political lines are just very fascinating to me, especially because of the ways that social media interacts with our political landscape. So, you know, first we kind of touched on these issues of misinformation or disinformation, and those things have been proven to worsen political instability and legitimize like mass atrocities. So this hyper-sensationalized draw of misinformation, it is linked to spreading harmful lies, increasing profitability as a result of it, and in a system of capitalism, we all know profit is king. So this means it's in the social media platform's best interest to expose people to false information that contributes to further political polarization and ultimately political instability. Researchers believe that organized social media misinformation campaigns have operated in at least 81 countries around the world. They only looked at 81 countries, and they're like, yeah, all of them had this, potentially other countries we didn't even look at. and that they have targeted goals to exploit what they call socio-political cleavage to contribute to domestic political instability intentionally with this goal of advancing some sort of political narrative. So creating significant social and political polarization, anti-democratic or weakened democratic regimes, and severe governance or security crises, which usually are then used as like an excuse to spread fascism.
Yeah, you know, I feel like maybe the reason why conservatives are having such a good time on the internet, seemingly...
Yeah, they are.
I assume conservative because you said the conservative men and the South, which it tends to be more conservative, is the... there's not as much opposition to misinformation, and it seems like it's almost part of it, where it's like the facts don't matter. All that matters is the idea of conservatism, the idea that hierarchy is good, the way things are in, you know, this quote unquote traditional values are good, unquestioning. Like, it doesn't matter what the facts. It doesn't. Right. The facts do not matter. And
the ends justify the means.
The ends justify the means. Whereas I feel like if you're more left leaning and you see shit on the internet, you're like, oh my god, like, what the fuck is happening? This is terrible. Like,
yes,
you know, it's funny because I was watching the new season of White Lotus.
Oh yeah, I haven't watched it yet.
And I'm not gonna spoil anything, but there's like a character, and she's like, I think like an East Coast liberal, wealthier woman, and she's like, I've thought about children, but with everything going on right now, things are just terrible. And they're with this other wealthy couple, but they're like, oh, we're not political. What do you mean things are terrible? Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Like, oh, we don't follow the news. And she's like, what are you talking, with everything that's been going on the past couple of years? They're like, what?
Right.
And like, I was thinking about where, like, because I just don't think that way, like, how if you are in that conservative thing on Facebook, it's like, well, Facebook is kind of set up for conservative style politics.
Right, it is. It really is. And we see that. And we see that, like, misinformation, pushing around misinformation as though it's true, it does usually serve, like, an ultra right-wing kind of fascist like campaign. Like, that's who benefits from it, people who want that type of political structure. And so yeah, obviously that does make sense that if you're super conservative and that's what the internet is pushing everybody towards and facilitating misinformation in this widespread way that benefits your political agendas, why would you be having a bad time?
Yeah, or if someone's like yelling at you on the internet, maybe about something that's even justified, you're not like, maybe I should think about this. You're like, not going to think about it. I'm fine.
Yes.
I'm not having a bad time here. I'm just yelling.
Yeah. So according to this paper called Social Media Misinformation and the Prevention of Political Instability and Mass Atrocities, which was written by Christina Hook and Ernesto Verdeja, polarization occurs through spreading dehumanizing discourse on the internet while reinforcing differences between in-groups and out-groups online, which we've talked about those before in a different episode. So an in-group would just be like people who are like you, and an out-group would be people you don't consider to be like you at all. So if you're a Republican, for example, you might intentionally be exposed to repeated dehumanizing false statements about Democrats because they're your out-group, they're not your in-group. And out-groups are seen as threats to the interest, goals, security, or survival of the in-group. So misinformation both draws from and intensifies this like polarization, and it underscores the reinforcing nature of like these radicalization dynamics. You have authoritarian and semi-authoritarian governments that are much more likely to use disinformation to target opponents, silence dissent, and shape public discourse. It's just like a propaganda tool, basically. And propaganda serves authoritarian government systems. And people are targeted for this type of political agenda based on their need for belonging and security. That's like a human need, right? Feels good to be part of a group or part of a community. And social media feeds into this. It connects you with your in-group, and it makes you feel like you belong. And initially, this has this impact of strengthening your psychological well-being. You belong. That feels good, right? It's comforting. Once you belong, though, it becomes harder for you to critique the narratives or stories that are dominant with your in-group. Like, if 90% of the people you call your community know for a fact the sky is red, for example, it's just not very appealing to try to challenge them on the subject. You risk losing your entire community. You might want to agree with them because you want to be part of that in-group. Especially if the person who's telling you the sky is definitely red happens to be like a trusted or known source, like someone you talk to every day. People also have this like overwhelming desire to be rational, which means that it's appealing to draw simple black and white conclusions about how the world works, even though in reality, most of the time, those simple black and white conclusions don't exist. Political scenarios in particular can be like complicated, confusing, messy. Like just thinking about the Cambridge Analytica thing. It's like all these different companies that were involved and all these different interests. Like it's very seldom this black and white, clear-cut story. But if you're like, this is too much for me to understand, and someone's like, here's the simple truth about how the world works, that becomes especially appealing to you because you want to be rational, you want to understand, and if someone tells you a story that makes sense in your brain, it doesn't really matter if it's true. You are going to go along with that story, especially if the lie comes couched in this idea that all the good people believe this. The only people who don't believe this are the bad people.
Yeah, I was watching a TikTok which argued that like kids missing school, like especially during the pandemic, is more likely for them to go down the alt-right pipeline because they want really simple answers. And like that, like alt-right fascist thinking provides really simple answers.
Right, and the algorithms push people into these extreme polarizing corners. So if you're a kid on the internet and you like Andrew Tate, for example.
I was just that's what I was thinking of was Andrew Tate.
It's like you like one thing that's maybe like, oh, this is fucked up, and the next thing you know, you're just pigeonholed into like constantly receiving content that's increasingly more and more and more fucked up, and your beliefs get more and more and more extreme, and you fall into this in-group of other people with these fucked up extreme beliefs. And then there's this also, like, this thing about confirmation bias, which we've talked about before. Lots of people talk about this. It's just this idea that's been proven time and time again that we are more likely to believe sources that agree with us than we are to believe sources that don't. And if you take that into account, along with the algorithm gearing you towards those extreme kind of content type things that reinforce your already existing beliefs, it's going to get harder and harder for you to break your own belief patterns, basically. So you are more likely to believe things that reinforce what you already believe, and then you've got this whole machine, the machine of social media, that's just constantly showing you more shit like what you already believe. So it's just like compounding. And effective disinformation campaigns will intensify those biases and create like politically divisive in-group and out-group distinctions that grow more and more extreme over time. So researchers say that online social media disinformation campaigns have been used to secure backing by discrediting the opposition in presidential elections in places like Brazil in 2018, Indonesia in 2019, the United States in 2020, and Colombia in 2022. And these misinformation campaigns are kind of unique in that it's not just like the regular like extremist content radicalization where I think we see sometimes like with Andrew Tate or like with QAnon, we see people engage in these not because they have a calculated plan, but because they like the notoriety or fame that comes along with it.
Because it's like kind of like it honestly, because it has shock value.
It has shock value, and you can make a living off of it, and you get popular, and people like you.
It's almost like like conspiracy shit too. It's like people kind of do a choose your own adventure where, type of situation.
And you have the special knowledge.
It's like to me, it's like a fantasy type thing.
Yes.
It's like a RPG.
Totally. So unlike those things, which just might be like regular people who are like, yeah, here's what I believe, everybody loves me, I'm one of you, but with the most opinions. Like, that makes sense to me. That's like a normal thing. Instead, these types of misinformation campaigns that were used places like Brazil, Indonesia, the United States, and Colombia in presidential campaigns, those were different because they're what researchers described as being sustained, coordinated, and sophisticated efforts to manipulate public sentiment and views well beyond uncoordinated or sporadic misinformation posts. So it wouldn't just be like your Aunt Peggy being like, I don't think vaccines are good, right? Which is like misinformation. That's not real. But that's just like your Aunt Peggy, like maybe getting confused or wanting to fit in with a group or not understanding what she's talking about. Instead, this would be like, for example, if you live in a country or whatever called, I don't know, Hamburger Land, and in Hamburger Land, there's one company that makes all the vaccines, and they're called Vaxlord, and you are running for political office, and Vaxlord is like, we're not backing you, we're backing your opponent, and then you're like, cool, I'm going to create a whole misinformation campaign online that makes it so that Vaxlord is evil and nobody can trust them, and they're lying to everybody, that way they won't have the money to fund my opponent's political campaign, and I will be the victor. Like, that would be a lot more successful and a lot more sinister and far-reaching than just like your Aunt Peggy having a bad take, you know? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the thing that they were looking into, and they're like, no, these are different. There's different types of misinformation. There's sporadic misinformation. There's uncoordinated, just bad opinions. There's whatever. But then there are also these sustained, coordinated, sophisticated efforts to intentionally manipulate public sentiment, and that is usually done by governing bodies or political agents, either within a region or outside of a region, in this like really intentional propaganda type way. So, you know, studies have also shown that many Americans already instinctively know this. This probably isn't going to be shocking, but people with conservative beliefs are also more likely to spread news from sources of low credibility and therefore spread these misinformation kind of posts when, you know, they're presented in these coordinated ways. So conservatively oriented Americans are also going to be worse at distinguishing truth from falsehood, and they also will rank higher in terms of political bias than people who are more left-leaning. So if you're left-leaning, you're more likely to be like, well, I want to just know the truth. And if you're right-leaning, like you mentioned, Kenna, it's kind of like, well, it doesn't matter what the truth is. My biases are more important, and that's what I want to do. So the Aunt Peggy interacts with the Hamburger Land conspiracy theory that I made up, which I'm realizing is a bad metaphor. Sometimes I come up with these metaphors on the fly, and I'm like, the fuck did I get here? But they both interact with each other. You have these coordinated misinformation campaigns that are super fucking sophisticated, and then when you have somebody who's just an average internet user who's a little more conservative, they're more likely to take that as truth, not fact check it, and kind of spread it amongst their peers.
Yeah, because I think that, like, not to say that people who are conservative don't want to know the truth. I think that, like, the truth doesn't matter. Because sometimes they'll be like, you'll say something that, well, that fact isn't true. And they're like, well, yeah, I know that, but that doesn't matter because, you know, the patriarchy is right.
Right, because of my moral values.
Yeah, it's like once you get down to it, it's like, oh, well, I actually don't care. It doesn't matter the facts because I still think that men are better than everyone else.
Right. So it's more like you have a belief and then you're looking for facts to support your belief. Where maybe people who are more left-leaning are like, well, no, I formed my opinion based on the facts that I learned.
Yeah. And, I would say that that's probably more, you know, although I have heard that, like, certain people are more disposed to be conservative or a liberal.
Well, I think it has a lot to do, like, we talked about this in one of our episodes about like where you grow up, like your environment, people you're around, and that goes back to that in-group out-group thinking.
I feel like I even heard somewhere that it can even be somewhat genetic.
Oh yeah, like people who are more fearful, that can be a genetic thing.
Tend to be more conservative,
right,
than people who are not as fearful.
Right, people on the left are more likely to be chillers.
Yeah, that's like an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, it definitely is interesting. So, okay, so basically what does it mean, you know, that these researchers found these separate types of misinformation that were sustained, coordinated, sophisticated, and had to do with, like, political elections in major places? Well, what it ties into is just exactly what you would guess. It's governments using social media as a propaganda tool. So we have national governments who are using social media to spread misinformation or push political agendas. We have individual, like, politicians who are doing it to advance their own political campaigns. We have all this happening in this clusterfuck of propaganda media. So Mike Bramowitz, who's the president of this group called Freedom House, says many governments are finding that on social media, propaganda works better than censorship. And our own government is a great example of this. In 2011, the U.S. military was developing a software to allow it to secretly manipulate social media with fake online personas to spread pro-American propaganda. And we know that this worked because in August of 2022, just this year, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram all had to remove a series of accounts running pro-USA propaganda operations.
Wow.
Yeah, and a lot of these accounts are made to look like real people. They have AI-generated faces as the pictures. That, like, you know how those...
like, you know, the Twitter account, like, this is not a real person?
Yes, like that, exactly, yeah. And this isn't just in the United States, although the United States obviously has some of the most power globally, so when we do it, we're doing it in a major fucking way, and we have obviously the horrific history of, like, CIA intervention and propaganda and destabilization in other countries, so we know we're not just doing this on our own people, we're doing it on other countries as well. But in addition to us, there's also 61 other countries where researchers found evidence of a government agency using computational propaganda to shape public attitudes. So Professor Philip Howard, who's the director of the Oxford Internet Institute, says, our report shows misinformation has become more professionalized and is now produced on an industry scale. So now more than ever, the public needs to be able to rely on trustworthy information about government policy and activity. Social media companies need to raise their game by increasing their efforts to flag misinformation and close fake accounts without the need for government intervention, so the public has access to high quality information. So where does this all leave us, right? We got massive multi-billion-dollar corporations knowingly spreading blatant lies to highly vulnerable people in order to make them hate their neighbors because it keeps them engaged on their social media platforms on their iPhones long enough for companies to try to sell us shampoo and gather our data to covertly sell to unscrupulous political actors who want to advance fascism where we live. So it's basically a clusterfuck of capitalism on top of a clusterfuck of capitalism on top of another clusterfuck of capitalism, right? The social media companies are profiting off of us. The shampoo companies are profiting off of us. The politicians are lying to us to convince us to vote in favor of things that go against our best interests so that they can continue to profit off of us. And then we're there and we're just earnestly optimistic. We're on these social media apps just wanting to like see pictures of our best friend's dog or our cousin's wedding or whatever.
Yeah.
You know? And I feel like we're constantly being told, yeah, social media is bad for you. But it feels like we're told this while someone points to like an influencer who's like a young woman who does good makeup and says, oh, she's the problem. She's making you all hate yourself. She is the problem with social media. But in reality, it's really obvious that the bulk of the damage done by social media is done by our own government running misinformation campaigns for political coercion, or tech CEOs creating stressful algorithms to maximize engagement in a way that pushes users to alter their content to maximize reach. Like, I'm super resistant to this idea that we're supposed to blame a 20-year-old girl on Instagram who on average earns $36,000 per year working as an influencer for all the social ills caused by social media. But that seems to be the mainstream narrative that's pushed on us whenever somebody is like, social media bad. In reality, we know if social media is bad, it's because of the true aggressors who are well-known billionaires who've been documented saying time and time again that they know what they're doing to us and they do not care. So in the end, I think like the issue with social media, it's the same issue with society at whole. It's the same issue that affects everything we talk about on our podcast. Social media is fine. The issue is that capitalism has corrupted it and we deserve something better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have any final thoughts on our episode about social media?
I was just thinking about what I would do for social media. I would just, I'd take it back to the old school days. I would also nationalize it,
Yeah, it needs to be a public service.
Or just or just being like, it's run. I liked when you were talking about Makeout Club, where people would just be like, oh, we're just doing this all for free. Like, we're just fixing the code ourselves. Like, if there wasn't advertising, if there was really robust, like, content moderation to keep out, like, the true, like, bad actors, and, and, like, if there was, like, I don't know, like, bring back the regular, what is it? Where it's in order. Chronological order.
Bring back the chronological order, Mark Zuckerfuck. I hate that guy. I hate that guy so much.
Fucking Face Smash, man.
Face Smash, I know. No, I think that's a good idea. It's like we need small niche social media platforms that maybe are more tapped into our interests, that people, have less reach on. So there's less maybe of like an incentive for people to try to control the information flow. And we also need more chronological orders of things, not this algorithm-based thing that's just chasing the most sensational story anybody can possibly come up with on the spot.
I wish there were like a Facebook that everyone could use that was easy and not cringe.
Right. And not evil.
Although not a Facebook. Yeah, just something not cringe.
Just something, yeah. There's got to be something. In the meantime, though, ironically enough, I will be posting screenshots from my 2004 message board activity on Mad Rad Hair onto our own little social media of Patreon for all of our subscribers.
Oh, good segue.
and onto our Instagram account. Pick me up, I'm scared. So, yeah, follow us on our social media platforms, ironically.
Or unironically.
Or unironically.
We'll take either.
We'll take either.
Or none. It's fine. You're here.
Free me from this hell. Is that it? Is that our episode?
Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Pick Me Up, I'm Scared. If you would like to join us on Patreon, you can find us at patreon.com/pickmeupimscared. For $2 a month, you can access 2 bonus episodes monthly. And also you can chat with us about what's on your mind and give us recommendations for show topics. Ooh, but if you don't want to do that, that is totally fine. We're just happy you're here.